Chapter 391. That old bastard. Murong lay limp on the ground, cursing at Ho Yin. At this time, Murong Yu's bones had been shattered, and he was lying limp on the ground like a lump of rotten meat. It was very miserable. As it turned out, Ho Yin had sent Murong Yu flying the moment he sensed danger. However, during this process, his palms spat out a powerful force at the same time. It was this force that had shattered all of Murong Yu's bones. Terrifying cracks had also appeared on his body. This old bastard was too sinister. Fortunately, Murong Yu's body was strong, and at the same time, he had summoned the Hichu Luo Shu. Otherwise, not only would his bones have been shattered, but his entire body would have been blown to smithereens. However, that old bastard didn't have it easy either. He also left an arm behind. Murong Yu gritted his teeth and cursed Ho Yin for a while before a look of pity appeared on his face. It turned out that this was all Murong Yu's plan. Due to Ho Yin's overwhelming strength, Murong Yu couldn't shake him at all. However, although he was not strong enough, he had the yin-yang cauldron. Even if Ho Yin was a few times stronger, he would not be able to withstand the burning of the yin-yang fire. However, it was impossible to burn Ho Yin to death with the yin-yang fire under normal circumstances. It was only possible for a sneak attack at close range. That was why the previous scene had happened. Although all of this was just a deliberate act by Murong Yu, he had gone all out. It was because of this that Ho Yin did not suspect anything. In the end, Murong Yu successfully got close to Ho Yin and summoned the yin-yang cauldron in an attempt to kill him. However, it was a pity that Murong Yu's long-awaited attack only left one of Ho Yin's arms behind and did not kill him. What method did Ho Yin use to shatter the yin-yang fire? Murong Yu lay on the ground and recalled as he circulated his life force to quickly recover his strength. It seems that Ho Yin detonated several immortal artifacts. It was the terrifying power of these detonated immortal weapons that forced the yin-yang flame away. And Ho Yin took the opportunity to rush out. Murong Yu sneered in his heart. This time, even though Ho Yin had snatched away his immortal vein, he had also exploded a few immortal equipment and an arm. Come to think of it, Murong Yu didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. That's not right. Murong Yu's eyes suddenly lit up. Mother asterisk Kerr, you bastard. If I ever see you again, I'll definitely kill you. In a cave on a mountain peak far away from Murong Yu, Ho Yin, who had lost his left arm and was in a sorry state, was cursing loudly with a pale face. Waves of heart-wrenching pain continued to agitate Ho Yin. Ho Yin looked at his severed arm, and his face immediately turned hideous. This time, I really went for wool and came home shorn. My storage ring. Ho Yin let out a scream and almost fainted. He had worn his storage ring on his severed arm. If that arm was gone, then his storage ring would be gone as well. It should be known that his storage ring contained everything he had in his life. Now, other than his life, Ho Yin had nothing left. This time, that bastard really got away with it. Mother asterisk Kerr, that kid is too strange. What kind of fire is that? If I hadn't decisively detonated the 5 immortal artifacts when my life was hanging by a thread, I wouldn't have been able to escape. It's best that the storage ring was also burned by the fire. Otherwise, that kid really got away with it. Ho Yin kept cursing and scolding Murong Yu, who had caused him to lose everything. No matter what, I have to get my storage ring back. After thinking about it, Ho Yin was still unwilling to give up. He left the cave and rushed back to where he had been. Not long after, Ho Yin had returned to the place where his arm had been burned. However, where was his storage ring? Even Murong Yu had disappeared long ago. Mother asterisk Kerr, that bastard, don't let me see you again. Otherwise, I'll put you to death by 1,000 cuts. Ho Yin cursed loudly. Just as he was about to leave this place, he discovered that there was an additional jade slip on the ground beside him. What's this? When he saw the jade slip, Ho Yin directly took it into his hand. It was moist when he touched it, and a pungent smell went straight to the tip of his nose. Ho Yin frowned, but he still probed the jade slip with his divine sense without hesitation. Mother asterisk Kerr, you're here. You really didn't die. Just as Ho Yin's divine sense probed the jade slip, an arrogant and conceited voice directly sounded. Ho Yan's body swayed, and his face immediately turned ashen. He turned around and looked over, only to see a large black dog the size of a tiger standing on its hind legs not far in front of him. Its front paws were pointing towards Ho Yan's direction as it opened its bloody mouth filled with crisscrossing fangs and let out an arrogant laugh. "You beast!" Ho Yan was so angry that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. He knew that the large black dog was only an illusion, and that all he had to do was crush the jade slip and it would disappear. Still, he couldn't hold back his rage. "You mother of asterisk cur, I know you're cursing me, Lord Heavenly Dog. You mother of asterisk cur, why haven't you kowtowed to Lord Heavenly Dog? You really are an unfilial old bastard." Ho Yan was so angry that he really wanted to crush the jade slip in his hand, but in the end, he forced himself to restrain himself. "Old bastard, you mother of asterisk cur, I'll tell you now. This Lord Heavenly Dog has obtained your storage ring." "Oh no, my master has it? Surely you want to know my master's identity?" "Stand firm, I'll tell you. My master is the most outstanding disciple of his generation in the Black Sieve sect, bar none. His name is Suda, the last disciple of Patriarch Black Sieve. The Black Sieve sect will remember your sneak attack. I'm on my way back to the sect. Old bastard, if you have the guts, don't leave these ruins. Otherwise, it won't be long before the experts of the Black Sieve sect arrive and grind your bones to dust. Of course, even if you manage to escape the ruins, it doesn't matter. The Black Sieve sect will remember this. Just wait for us to hunt you down and kill you. All right, I'm sorry for burning your arm. My master was going to burn you to death, you old bastard. But then he saw you as a mother of asterisk cur. You're my descendant. My master was merciful and spared your life for my sake." Pooh! When he heard this, Ho Yan couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. However, his face was ashen as he stared at the illusory image of the black dog. He didn't crush the jade slip. "So, you were able to escape not because you're strong, but because of me. Of course, since you're a mother of asterisk cur, I won't bicker with you too much. However, we won't let the matter of your sneak attack on my master go. We'll gladly accept your storage ring. At the same time, my master has a message for you. He wants to thank you for collecting so many treasures for him over the years." Pooh! Ho Yan spat out another mouthful of blood. He almost fainted. "All right, before I leave, I have to tell you something. Did you notice something strange about the jade slip in your hand? Haha, that's my virgin urine. You're very lucky, you old bastard. Mother of asterisk curs, you two bastards. Don't ever let me see you again, or I'll kill you." Ho Yan roared furiously. He crushed the jade slip in his hand. Sure enough, Muron Yu had obtained his storage ring, and Muron Yu hadn't forgotten to thank him. At the same time, the big black dog's words also infuriated Ho Yan. Finally, when he learned that the jade slip was stained with the black dog's virgin urine, Ho Yan couldn't hold it in any longer. He spat out a mouthful of blood, rolled his eyes, and fainted. The black dog's words and his virgin urine were even more powerful than Muron Yu's ultimate strength. Ho Yan was so angry that he fainted. However, Ho Yan was still a powerful expert, and after a few moments, he regained consciousness. Don't tell me that Suda really is the most talented disciple of the Black Sieve sect? Ho Yan wondered. Is he really the last disciple of Patriarch Black Sieve? Considering Muron Yu's power and the treasures he possessed, it seemed likely that Suda's identity was true. If he really is the last disciple of Patriarch Black Sieve, then this is bad. Ho Yan's face grew darker and darker as he thought about it. This won't do. In my current state, I have no treasures. If the experts of the Black Sieve sect come, I won't be able to escape, and the Black Sieve sect won't be easy to deal with. Mother of asterisk cur, it's all that damned Suda's fault. Ho Yan cursed repeatedly, then turned and left. His body moved at lightning speed, disappearing into the horizon. Compared to Muron Yu, this guy was extremely powerful. But to Patriarch Black Sieve, he was nothing. Besides, the Black Sieve sect wasn't something he could afford to provoke. Therefore, in the end, he left the ruins. He feared that the experts of the Black Sieve sect would come for him. Big Black Dog, you're far too filthy and vile. Actually, Morong hadn't left the ruins. He'd simply been hiding in the Hichu, Luoshu world, watching everything unfold from afar. When he saw Ho Yin spit out blood, he couldn't help but laugh heartily. He felt very good about himself. This was definitely something to be proud of. Who could possibly infuriate a golden or profound immortal to the point of spitting blood with just a few words? As far as the Big Black Dog knew, he was the only one who could. What? He said. That old bastard really is infuriating. I wanted to give him a taste of my claw, but unfortunately, I'm not strong enough. The large black dog rolled his eyes as he looked at Muronyu. Why wouldn't I want to slap him to death? I've always been the one to rob others. No one has ever tried to steal from me. But then again, that old bastard sure has a lot of treasures. When he thought of Ho Yan's storage ring, Muronyu couldn't help but laugh. Ho Yan was very strong, at least to Muronyu. Although he didn't know how strong Ho Yan was, Muronyu guessed that he was at least a golden immortal or profound immortal. Golden immortals and profound immortals didn't have high statuses in the world of immortals, nor were they particularly strong. Such experts generally didn't have many treasures. However, when Muronyu probed Ho Yan's storage ring with his divine sense, he was shocked to discover that this guy had quite a few treasures. Chapter 392. Other than the materials and treasures that Muronyu had no use for, there were also 5 immortal meridians in the storage ring. In other words, he had 4 immortal meridians. How could a mere golden immortal have so many immortal meridians? Even sects like the Divine Spirit sect did not have immortal meridians. Could it be that he had some special background? However, Muronyu did not care what his opponent's background was. He was not afraid, even if he was from the Immortal Palace or the demonic sect. As long as they were his enemies, he would kill them. Of course, he did not have the strength to kill them now. 5 immortal meridians was an astronomical number, even for some sections. Even for sects like the Divine Spirit sect. Of course, it was different for those big sections. 5 immortal meridians. At least I don't have to worry about immortal meridians now. Muronyu laughed. Apart from the immortal meridians, there were also a large number of immortal elixirs in the storage ring. These elixirs meant that Muronyu did not have to deliberately refine immortal elixirs now. At the same time, there were a few immortal artifact treasures in the storage ring. This Ho Yin was really rich to the point of leaking oil. At least, it was impossible for an ordinary golden immortal to have so many treasures. Even an immortal meridian was out of his reach. The enemy is too strong. I have to improve my strength as soon as possible. Muronyu handed all the elixirs to Hichu for analysis. After that, he decided to ignite his immortal meridians to cultivate and improve his strength. This is an immortal meridian. Muronyu looked at the immortal meridian in his hand with a pained expression. Then, he ignited it without hesitation. Suddenly, a powerful force exploded. At the same time, Muronyu began to use the power of the ignited immortal meridian to accelerate time. 10 times, 100 times, 200 times, 500 times, 1,000 times. Finally, after accelerating time to 1,000 times, Hichu Luoshu could no longer accelerate time. This was because with Murongyu's strength, he could only accelerate time by 1,000 times. However, 1,000 times faster time flow was more than enough for Murongyu. Chaotic celestial body records. Under the space that was 1,000 times faster than normal, Murongyu sat down cross-legged on the ground and began cultivating. He could directly cultivate the chaotic celestial records. The chaotic celestial body record had a total of 9 levels. Each level was divided into 3 levels. Now, Murongyu's strength was above the first stage of the second stage. Based on his previous experience, Muronyu felt that if he could cultivate the first level of the second level to the Great Circle, he should be able to step into the Ascendant Immortal stage. However, how could it be so easy to cultivate the chaotic celestial records to perfection? Even if it was only the first level of the first level, it was still the same. However, if Murong wanted to break through, he would have to cultivate the chaotic celestial record. Time slowly passed. Unknowingly, many years had passed since Murong had entered seclusion to cultivate the chaotic celestial records. At this time, the ruins had been open for half a year. In half a year, as the news of the disappearance continued to spread, more and more people rushed into the ruins. In the ruins, some people also obtained immortal meridians, and some people also found some small secret realms and made some small gains. However, the greatest treasure in the ruins was still undiscovered, and this undiscovered treasure trove was the biggest treasure trove in this ruin. In other words, it was the ruins of the ancient sect. The ruins were very big, but in half a year, many immortals who came after hearing the news had trampled every inch of space. However, no one was able to find the ruins of the ancient sect. Could it be that the ruins had been discovered many years ago? Have these treasures been taken away by others? This thought appeared in many people's minds. In fact, many people had already left the ruins. Boom! On this day, an earth-shattering loud noise suddenly sounded in the ruins. The moment the loud sound rang out, the entire world of the ruins seemed to shake. The earth was shaking and the sky was trembling. Could it be that the ruins are about to collapse? Immediately, many immortals had this thought in their minds. This was because the ruins were not a whole with the immortal world outside. The ruins were equivalent to a secret realm, a space in the immortal world. This kind of space was not very sturdy. In the past, there had been a phenomenon of the entire secret realm collapsing. Many years ago, a legendary secret realm appeared in the immortal world, attracting many powerful experts to enter. Perhaps the strength of those experts was too terrifying. They fought one after another in the secret realm, causing the sky to fall and the earth to crack. The earth fell silent, and the sky was destroyed. Or perhaps the secret realm had existed for too long. Or perhaps it was a combination of both. In short, not long after the secret realm opened, it suddenly collapsed. The secret realm collapsed like a piece of paper, and all the immortals in the secret realm, including the super experts in the immortal emperor realm, were buried inside. No one was able to come out. This secret realm won't collapse, will it? Seeing the sky shaking and the earth shaking, many immortals immediately thought of the collapsed secret realm. Therefore, one by one, they used their bodies, raised their speed to the limit, and shot toward the exit of the secret realm. All of them were afraid that they would be buried in the secret realm if they were too slow. Unlike these people, in the southeast of the secret realm, a group of people was staring at the huge palaces that rose from the ground in front of them with their mouths agape. These palaces were very ancient, and many of them were very dilapidated. Some of them were even broken into pieces, as if they had been damaged by the aftermath of the battle. It seemed that the fall of this ancient sect was due to some battle, or it could be said that this sect was destroyed by another sect. The densely packed buildings made it look like a super city. Such a big sect, even in the ancient times, it should be a first-rate force, right? Such a powerful sect was actually annihilated by someone. Who has the ability to do that? An immortal looked at the dilapidated buildings in front of him in shock. One must know that the first-rate forces in the immortal world, which one of them did not have a deep foundation. Although it was not impossible to wipe out a first-rate force from the world, it was definitely very difficult, unless those super forces took action. This is the real treasure of this ruin. The ruins of the ancient sect. We're rich. At this moment, an immortal suddenly shouted with incomparable excitement. The real treasure. The ruins of the ancient sect. There must be a lot of treasures inside, and there might even be the inheritance of this ancient sect. Another immortal shouted with excitement, and at the same time his body flashed, and he rushed into the ruins. At the same time, the remaining immortals did not want to be left behind, and they all rushed into the ruins. Bang! Suddenly, the first immortal who rushed into the ruins let out a shrill scream, and at the same time, his entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Bang! 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 After this immortal was killed inexplicably, The other immortals could not stand still and rushed in at the same time. But as expected, they were all killed. Their deaths were very terrifying and horrifying. The most important thing was that they didn't even know who had killed them. Seeing this, the remaining immortals all stopped in their tracks and looked at the ruins in horror. No one dared to take half a step into the lightning pool. "Did any of you see how they died?" An immortal asked loudly. Everyone looked at each other and saw the fear and doubt in each other's eyes, but no one knew how those people were killed. At this moment, an immortal suddenly said, "I saw a figure just now, but I don't know if I saw wrongly." "You mean there's someone inside? Then aren't they ancient immortals?" An immortal suddenly said in horror. Ancient immortals were the immortals of the ancient times. Who knew how long it had been since the ancient times? However, if those ancient immortals had really been left behind, how terrifying would their strength be? Ancient immortals? That shouldn't be possible, right? They can't have such a long lifespan. An immortal said doubtfully. Immortals were not immortal. Even people from the heaven realm could not live forever. If they are really ancient immortals, as long as their strength continues to break through, their lifespan will naturally grow longer and longer. It's also possible that they have been living until now. Another immortal said, "How terrifying were the strength of ancient immortals who could live until now." Just thinking about it was terrifying. If they are really ancient immortals, then why didn't they go out? Why did they stay here? We saw these ruins rising from the ground. Even if they are ancient immortals, how can they survive underground? If they are not ancient immortals, then who are they? Who can live for so long? The more these immortals thought about it, the more terrified they felt. At this moment, many immortals nearby had heard the news and came over. Of course, these people did not know what was in the ruins. After seeing the ruins, they were all pleasantly surprised. They only looked strangely at these people who did not enter the ruins when they saw them, and then directly rushed into the ruins. Bang! 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 Without exception, after these people entered the ruins, they all exploded into clouds of blood mist and were killed directly. I saw it. There are really ancient immortals inside. At this moment, the immortals who discovered the ruins first looked at the ruins in horror and said, Chapter 393. The first batch of immortals who discovered the ruins did not enter again because they suspected that there was an ancient immortal inside. On the contrary, they observed from the outside. Finally, after a few more immortals were killed, they discovered that there was really an ancient immortal inside. The speed of those immortals was too fast. They were gone in a flash. However, many immortals were killed just like that. There were even golden immortals among them. Even golden immortals were killed directly. In order to kill these people, one had to be at least a mystic immortal expert. However, the ruins had been buried under the ground for so many years. Who else could survive other than an ancient immortal? How terrifying was the strength of an ancient immortal who had survived all this time? What? There's an ancient immortal in the ruins? Many immortals were killed inexplicably, causing the nearby people to not dare to take half a step into the thunder pool. After hearing these people's discussion, the nearby people were shocked. It seems like there's really something in the ruins. It's as fast as a ghost. Could it really be an ancient immortal? The news of the ruins' appearance and the ancient immortal's appearance quickly spread out in the ruins. Not long after, it had spread throughout the ruins. After hearing this news, everyone in the ruins rushed to the ruins. It didn't take long for the ruins to be surrounded by countless immortals. However, no one dared to enter. In fact, there were also experts who were extremely confident in their strength. After arriving here, they rushed straight in, but without exception, they were all killed. Because there were many immortals outside, when these people entered, many experts discovered the ancient immortal inside the ruins. Even golden immortals were killed. Perhaps only mystic immortals won't be killed when they enter. An immortal said, if there's really an ancient immortal inside, even a mystic immortal would be killed. An immortal said hesitantly, after all, even a golden immortal would be killed instantly if he went in. Who knew if a mystic immortal could block the attack of these ancient immortals. What bullshit ancient immortal? If they were really ancient immortals, why would they stay in the ruins and not come out? I'm afraid they had already ascended to the heavenly realm when the ruins appeared, right? An elder of a sect said coldly. Ancient immortals, especially those who could survive until now, their strength had long surpassed the scope of the immortal realm. He was definitely at the level of a god. If these were really ancient immortals, they didn't need to do anything at all. Even if they just blew out a breath, the people outside the ruins would probably be directly killed without leaving even a trace. He's just playing tricks. A profound immortal sneered. He was an elder of the Xunling sect, a profound immortal. In this ruin, he was already considered top expert. Xunling sect, Jingtian sect, Linghong sect, most of the sects in the vicinity of Song Mountain were at this level. At this moment, the Xian immortals of these powers were gathered together. These ruins are the ruins of an ancient sect. There must be an enormous amount of treasures inside, and even the inheritance of this ancient sect. If the news of the ruins were to spread, I'm afraid even the Luotian sect, or even the mysterious sect, would not be able to resist getting involved. Once the profound sect interferes, we won't be able to get anything. The elder of the towering flood sect, the profound immortal sage Zhou Yang, said in a deep voice. What are you trying to say? The elder of the Xunling sect, who is also a profound immortal stage Fong Run, frowned and said. Zhou Yang slowly glanced at the others and said in a deep voice again, the strength of our sects is about the same. Now, we even have profound immortal stage experts. However, there are people causing trouble in the ruins. If we were to rely on our own strength, we would not be able to enter. Therefore, we have to join forces. Only by joining forces with the strength of our sects can we enter the ruins. Otherwise, a colossus like the mysterious sect will quickly receive the news. Once the people of the mysterious sect arrive here, I'm afraid they will directly chase us out of the ruins. You all know how overbearing they are. Fong Ren and the others nodded, and their faces turned gloomy. These sects were all forces in the vicinity. They more or less had some friendship, but they didn't seem to be on good terms with each other. After all, in the immortal realm, not many sects were truly friendly with each other. Almost all of them had a competitive relationship. Originally, after discovering the ruins, who didn't want to monopolize it? However, what Zhou Yang said was very reasonable. Once the colossus like the mysterious sect interfered in this matter, at that time, they wouldn't even have the qualifications to watch from afar. They would be directly cleared out. If they wanted to get a share, then they had to join forces. If there is really the inheritance of an ancient sect inside, how should we split it? Bright Sky Sect's elder by Diyin said in a deep voice. No matter how we split it, we will eventually get the things inside the ruins. Otherwise, once the mysterious sect comes, we will have nothing. Zhou Yang said in a deep voice. Everyone nodded. Since that's the case, let's discuss it. Not long after the profound immortal stage sects in the ruins discussed how to split it, they all returned to their own sects and began to organize the disciples of their respective sections. Dozens of profound immortals. Hundreds of golden immortals. This was their strongest force in the ruins, and it looked very powerful. However, it was made up of more than 10 to 20 sects of different sizes. After splitting it evenly, each sect only had 1 or 2 profound immortals. At this moment, these hundreds of experts gathered outside the ruins and began to slowly walk towards the ruins. Everyone must work together. Don't be left alone. Otherwise, you will have to bear the consequences. Zhou Yang and a few other powerful profound immortals stood at the front, and Zhou Yang said in a deep voice. The others nodded. They all knew that there was something strange in the ruins. Those existences that were similar to ancient immortals could kill golden immortals with a single strike. Everyone gathered into a group. The profound immortals stood outside, and the golden immortals were surrounded in the circle. They slowly walked towards the ruins. I wonder if they can withstand the attacks of those ancient immortals. Seeing this group of people slowly approaching the ruins, the immortals outside had their hearts in their mouths. especially the disciples of the various sects. Even their palms were sweating. At this moment, a group shot over from the ruins. Not long after, he approached the ruins and entered the crowd. "Brother, are there really ancient immortals inside?" This person obviously just came here and didn't know much about the ruins. The person who was asked was a middle-aged man. His strength was about the exalted immortal realm. The middle-aged exalted immortal glanced at the black-robed young man who appeared to be in his 20s with a harmless smile on his face. He nodded and said, "Indeed, many powerhouses, even golden immortals, were killed by the ancient immortals when they approached the ruins. There are indeed golden immortals inside." The young man in black frowned slightly. "Are there really ancient immortals? That's impossible. How can ancient immortals live for so long? If they were really ancient immortals, they would have ascended to godhood long ago. From the looks of it, you are only at the ascendant immortal stage. Even so, you possess such vast knowledge. Like the experts of the various sects, they thought so too. Right now, they are working together to enter the ruins." Looking into the distance, the middle-aged exalted immortal revealed a trace of envy in his eyes. "Unfortunately, I'm just an itinerant cultivator. I can only watch from here. Even if there's something in the ruins, we won't get a share." "There will be." The young man in black smiled faintly. In a flash, he squeezed into the crowd and shot toward the ruins. "Sigh, these young people." The middle-aged exalted immortal opened his mouth and was about to stop Moronyu. But in the end, he just shook his head. He and Moronyu were just strangers who met by chance. Although he wanted to be a good person, Moronyu might not appreciate it. "Hichu, do you think there might be ancient immortals in the ruins?" After asking many people, they all said that there were ancient immortals in the ruins. The young man in black was Moronyu, who had been in seclusion for hundreds of years. The acceleration of time by 1,000 times had directly burned 3 of the 5 immortal meridians that Moronyu had obtained. Apart from the 2 immortal meridians given to Hichu, the remaining 3 immortal meridians could only support the acceleration of time by 500 years in Hichu Luoshu. After 500 years, Moronyu's strength finally made another breakthrough and reached the exalted immortal realm. His strength had skyrocketed again. At the same time, while his strength skyrocketed, Moronyu felt extremely depressed. This was because he realized that the cultivation technique that Hichu said would have no bottlenecks if one cultivated it. Hichu Luoshu was actually so difficult to break through. Even though he had cultivated for 500 years, he had not reached the great circle of the chaotic celestial record's first stage of the second stage. However, he had already stepped into the exalted immortal realm from the early stage of the sky immortal realm. There was indeed no bottleneck between the realms, and he could directly break through. However, if he wanted to break through, he had to improve the chaotic celestial record first. Ancient immortals? Upon hearing this, Hichu sneered disdainfully. If those ancient immortals could really survive, it would really be strange. I thought of a possibility. Moronyu's eyes flashed. There might really be people in the ruins, but they're definitely not living people. Just like the ruins in the extreme celestial realm, Hichu said. When Moronyu first entered the extreme celestial realm, he had discovered a ruin. There were also some existences similar to humans inside. Those people were very powerful, and their speed was even more terrifying. Those are the living dead. They were originally dead, but for some reason, they were still alive. They still retained a trace of consciousness and possessed powerful strength and reaction speed. They were the guardians of the ruins. Whenever any life intruded into the ruins, they would instinctively attack and kill all intruders. This was their mission. Moronyu felt that the so-called ancient immortals in the ruins were the living dead. Chapter 394. Zhou Yang and the others finally entered the ruins. Due to the golden celestials who were killed earlier, they were still on high alert even though they were in a group. Swoosh! As soon as they entered the ruins, a strong sense of danger rose in their hearts. At the same time, a sinister feeling rose in their hearts. A bone-chilling feeling instantly appeared in their hearts. It's coming. Everyone who was already on high alert became even more vigilant at this moment. They instantly raised their strength to the limit. Swoosh! At this moment, a figure shot out from a nearby building and rushed towards Zhou Yang and the others. At this moment, the sense of danger in everyone's hearts instantly increased. Boom! The moment this black shadow appeared, an extremely terrifying power soared into the sky, enveloping everyone and chopping down. A profound celestial shouted as he threw a punch at the black figure. "You sneaky bastard! Die!" At the same time, a few dozen profound celestials and a few golden celestials also shouted as they unleashed their strength. Rumble! How terrifying was the combined strength of a few dozen profound celestials and golden celestials. Even an overarching heavenly supreme celestial who was stronger than a profound celestial would not dare to take it head-on. After an earth-shattering explosion, the figure that shot out was sent flying backward at an even more terrifying speed. His figure twisted violently in the void for a few times before disappearing into the ruins. Spurt, spurt, spurt. As soon as the black figure was sent flying, a few of the golden celestials who were huddled together were blasted into a bloody mist. Apart from these few unlucky golden celestials, the remaining few hundred golden celestials also coughed up blood. Even if it was Zhou Yang and the other mysterious immortal realm experts, their countenances turned pale at this moment, and they were shaken to the point of taking a few steps back. Apart from the profound celestials, the rest of the golden celestials were injured. Moreover, the black figure did not attack them directly. Instead, the shockwaves from the battle had injured them. If the black figure had attacked them directly, they would have been killed even if they were profound celestials. What a terrifying power! An expression of fear appeared on the faces of the remaining golden celestials and profound celestials. Earlier, they had only managed to send the black figure flying with a combined strength of a few hundred of them. However, a few of their gold immortals were turned into blood mists by the shockwaves, and all of them were instantly injured. One could only imagine how terrifying that black shadow's strength was. Zhou Yang and the rest looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. Was that really an ancient immortal? Zhou Yang transmitted his voice to the other Xian immortals. "I can't see clearly. His speed is simply too fast." A Xian immortal shook his head and said, "Just now, did anyone see clearly what the other party was?" Zhou Yang continued to ask the others. Everyone shook their heads. Several hundred of them had exchanged a blow with the other party, but they couldn't even see what the other party was. Could he really be an ancient immortal? The thought involuntarily rose up within their minds. What if he was really an ancient immortal? Then how can we be his match? Moreover, how many of them were there? If one of them wasn't a match for him, what if there were many of them? The thought of this made the golden immortals even more terrified. He shouldn't be an ancient immortal. I don't know if anyone noticed it, but when that thing came out, it had a gloomy aura. How could an ancient immortal have such an aura? I was thinking that this thing might not be alive. Most importantly, this thing should have been injured by us. Otherwise, it wouldn't hide and not come out. A Xian immortal said in a low voice. Not alive? Could it be a dead person? A zombie? Everyone was immortals, so they had heard of zombies before. According to the legends, zombies were extremely powerful, but they had a trace of consciousness from when they were alive. If the one attacking them was a zombie, then it must be one of the immortals of this ancient sect that had fallen. Because of a trace of consciousness from when they were alive, they had always been protecting the sect and killing all external life forms. If it's really a zombie, then there's no need to be so afraid. No matter how strong it is, it's just a dead thing. With our combined strength, how can we not be a match for a dead thing? Zhou Yang sneered. Yes, let's continue to go deeper and try to find the treasures and even the inheritance of this ancient sect. Once they thought of the treasures and inheritance of this ancient sect, the fear in their hearts disappeared and was replaced by greed. Thus, everyone once again walked into the ruins, but this time, they were even more careful. This ruins was like a huge city, extremely vast. Apart from the undead that attacked them when they first stepped into the ruins, they did not encounter any other attacks for the rest of the time. It shouldn't be. If there's really a zombie here, there shouldn't be only one. Could it really be an ancient immortal? Outside the ruins, Muronyu looked at the ruins with a puzzled expression, seeing that they had not been attacked along the way. Zhou Yang and the rest, who had already gone a few miles into the ruins, could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. They thought that there might only be one zombie in the ruins. Moreover, after being sent flying by them, it was likely that it was injured or frightened and did not dare to continue attacking. Thinking of this, everyone relaxed and began to come up with ideas. Even the immortals outside the ruins had the same idea after seeing that Zhou Yang and the rest had not been attacked for a long time. One by one, they wanted to try and enter the ruins. Be careful! Suddenly, just as everyone was about to make a move, Zhou Yang's heart suddenly felt a sense of danger. Everyone was shocked at first, but before they could react, a black shadow suddenly shot over from afar and descended from the sky. At the same time, an extremely terrifying aura enveloped them and slashed down rapidly. "It's here again, kill it!" Fang Run roared angrily and burst forth with all his strength, slamming his palm fiercely at the black shadow that was shooting over. "Kill it!" The others also reacted and roared angrily, unleashing their strongest attacks towards the black shadow. Caw-caw! A sharp and piercing sound came from the black shadow. Just as everyone was about to attack, the black figure spun around in the air and dashed to the side at high speed. Boom, boom, boom. The moment the black shadow disappeared, everyone's strength directly bombarded the void. It caused ripples to appear in the void, and the void began to distort violently. Oh no! A few mystic immortals reacted first and cried out in their hearts. Indeed, caw-caw, an unpleasant and piercing laughter suddenly came from the other side of the crowd. At the same time, a black shadow shot over at an extremely fast speed, carrying with it a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth. Zhou Yang and the other mystic immortals who reacted first roared angrily, turned around, and slammed their palms towards the black shadow that was shooting over. Caw-caw-caw. Almost at the same time, a series of unpleasant and piercing sounds came continuously. At this moment, Zhou Yang and the rest were shocked to discover that other than the two black shadows that had appeared, there were 7 or 8 black shadows that had suddenly appeared around them. Boom, boom, boom. Waves of terrifying energy continuously exploded from the black shadows, tearing apart the heavens and earth as they shot towards Zhou Yang and the rest. Poof, poof, poof. The energy that Zhou Yang and the rest had unleashed continuously collided with the energy that the black shadows had unleashed. However, because it was not the combined strength of everyone, their energy was unable to withstand a single blow and was directly shattered. With the combined strength of everyone, they were only able to fight one black shadow to a draw. How could the strength of a few mystic immortals be a match for these people? Moreover, there are not only 1 or 2 of these zombies, but 7 or 8 of them. Poof, poof, poof. The terrifying energy continued to bombard them. Some of the weaker golden immortals were the first to succumb and were continuously smashed into pieces by the terrifying energy. Gather into a group and retreat quickly. Zhou Yang's expression changed drastically when he saw that dozens of golden immortals had been killed in the first round of attacks. He roared and began to retreat rapidly. Crash! These golden immortals were all terrified and had long wanted to escape. After hearing Zhou Yang's words, they all spread out and shot towards the outside. Where was the formation? Caw-caw! The unpleasant and piercing sounds continued to spread, piercing everyone's ears. At the same time, the black shadows unleashed their terrifying speed and strength, slaughtering the immortals who had barged into the ruins. Poof, poof, poof. The zombies were extremely fast, so fast that only their shadows could be seen. At this moment, the crowd outside the ruins could only see phantoms shuttling back and forth among the immortals who were fleeing in all directions. Wherever they passed, Clouds of bloody mist rose into the sky. These immortals, regardless of whether they were golden immortals or mystic immortals, couldn't withstand even half a move from the black shadows. These zombies are truly terrifying. Their strength is simply too terrifying. Seeing the zombies massacre the golden immortals and mystic immortals, the immortals outside the ruins were so frightened that they kept retreating. They were afraid that the zombies would come out and kill them as easily as chopping vegetables. It seems that I have no fate with this ruins. Outside the ruins, Muronyu shook his head with a gloomy expression. Originally, he'd want to get a share of the loot after his strength had soared. But now it seemed that his strength wasn't enough. Like the golden immortals, he could only watch helplessly as he was slaughtered without being able to escape. Dead, they're all dead. Cries of alarm rang out from the crowd. Muronyu looked over and saw that the several hundred immortals who'd entered the ruins had all been killed. Not a single one of them had made it out alive. They couldn't even escape from a distance of a few miles. Were they too weak? No, it was just that the zombies were too strong. Chapter 395. Several hundred golden immortals and dozens of Shin immortals were completely annihilated. Not a single one managed to escape. The immortals outside the ruins were all scared out of their wits. They retreated far away from the ruins. However, it was the ruins of an ancient sect after all. There might be terrifying treasures inside. Due to their greed, although these people had left the ruins, they did not really leave the place. Including Muronyu. Those undead are simply too powerful. Even Shin immortals cannot escape from them. Truly terrifying. Countless immortals revealed a look of terror. Shin immortals in the immortal world still couldn't fly. However, they weren't slow at all. They could cross a few miles in the blink of an eye. However, they still couldn't escape in such a short amount of time. Although these undead are strong, they don't seem to leave the ruins. These immortals looked at the ruins from afar. After killing Zhou Yang and the other experts who entered the ruins, the undead that appeared before had already disappeared. They didn't leave the ruins to pursue the immortals outside. Although the undead are strong, they don't seem to be very strong. However, looking at the scale of the ruins, they should have been a first-rate faction in the ancient times. These shouldn't be the only living dead in the ruins. Muronyu frowned as he thought to himself as he mixed in with the crowd. When he was in the extreme celestial realm, there were 7 or 8 undead in the small ruins. Moreover, that was the cultivation world. Those ancient sects weren't strong. Even so, there was a king among them. He was much stronger than the ordinary undead. Muronyu wasn't their match at all. In the end, he relied on the earth arrow from the heaven-shaking arrow to kill him. It seems that the earth arrow mutated after killing the king. It must have absorbed the king's power. In other words, it mutated after absorbing the king's death energy. If I can kill even more undead and absorb even more death aura, will the earth arrow continue to mutate? Moreover, any one of these undead is countless times stronger than the king from before. Thinking up to this point, Muronyu couldn't help feeling fervent. Just think about it. Although the power of the earth arrow is unparalleled, your strength is still too weak. You can't unleash much of its power. Moreover, this ancient sect was so powerful that there must be many experts within it. Who knows, there might even be a super expert who's turned into a zombie. With your strength, you're definitely courting death. Ichu said as if he knew what Muronyu was thinking. Muronyu was stunned, then he smiled bitterly. Ichu was right. Are we really going to leave now? Muronyu looked at the ruins. He wanted to leave, but he was unwilling to do so. The news of the annihilation of the golden immortals and profound immortals must have spread. Even the mysterious sect would be interested in such a powerful living dead. He believed that there would be experts coming over soon. Even if I can't fish in troubled waters, I have to see what's in the ruins. Muronyu made up his mind and stayed near the ruins. Sure enough, within a few days, all the major sects in Jiang Prefecture were alarmed. Overarching heavenly supreme celestials, great overarching golden immortals, and even 9 heavens profound immortals entered the ruins and came to the front. In the void in front of the ruins, many experts stood proudly in the void, looking down at everything on the ground with disdain. Floating in the void was a divine power that only great, overarching golden immortals possessed. In other words, these people were all great, overarching golden immortals. Among them were Kong Shani of the Luotian sect, the elders of the Great Sky sect, and the sect master of the Earthfire sect. Looking at them one by one, a considerable number of experts from various sects in Jiang Prefecture, who had never shown up, had appeared here. On the ground, countless immortals looked up at these immortals standing proudly in the void. They didn't think that these immortals were too arrogant or pretentious. On the contrary, they looked at them with admiration and envy. After all, they were great, overarching golden immortals. They were qualified to look down on all living beings. Great, overarching golden immortals. They are all great, overarching golden immortals. When will I be able to cultivate to this realm? A heavenly immortal looked at the people in the void and said in an envious tone, "With your aptitude, you can forget about it in this lifetime." The heavenly immortal next to him looked at the heavenly immortal who spoke with disdain. "As long as I work hard, I will be able to cultivate to this realm." The heavenly immortal was not angry because of his companion's mockery. On the contrary, he said with determination, "In your dreams." The heavenly immortal still had a look of disdain on his face. As good friends, they naturally knew each other's aptitude very well. If he could cultivate to the great, overarching golden immortal with his aptitude, unless a miracle happened. The great, overarching golden immortals in the void laughed bitterly in their hearts when they heard the envious and jealous words of the people below. Hovering in the void, they were indeed deliberately maintaining the difference in status between them and the others. However, they were not high and mighty existences. Under the halo of a great, overarching golden immortal, how many people stopped at this level for their entire lives and could not break through? The lifespan of a great, overarching golden immortal was also limited. They could not live forever and could not break through. In the end, they could only die in depression. This was the sorrow of most great, overarching golden immortals. Another expert has come. Who is that person in the sedan chair? The people carrying the sedan chair are all great, overarching golden immortals. Suddenly, the crowd was in an uproar. One by one, they turned around and looked behind them to discuss animatedly. Morong Yu, who was in the crowd, turned his head and looked over. He saw a luxurious sedan chair appear in the distant sky. At this moment, the sedan chair was being carried by 4 great, overarching golden immortals, slowly flying towards the ruins. 4 great, overarching golden immortals carrying the sedan chair. This scene was too grand. Who exactly are they? Morong Yu had the same question as most of the people present. However, unlike them, the expressions of the great, overarching golden immortals in the void changed when they saw the sedan chair. At the same time, they could not help but retreat slightly to the side. At the same time, the sedan chair had already arrived in front of the ruins. At this moment, the great, overarching golden immortals who had retreated earlier approached the sedan chair slightly. At the same time, they bowed slightly and cupped their fists. "Greetings, madam." "Madam? Who's madam? Why is there such a grand scene?" The immortals below who did not know the situation looked puzzled. "Everyone, there's no need to be so courteous." A voice that could make one's bones go soft was heard, causing all the immortals present to reveal a look of infatuation. Only Morong Yu's expression changed greatly. This voice is so familiar. Isn't it the woman I saw when I just broke through the void and entered the Luotian sect? Morong Yu, whose expression changed greatly, looked into the void. Sure enough, he saw Kong Shani of the Luotian sect approaching the sedan chair and whispering something. "This woman is ruthless and powerful. I burned a section of her finger. If she finds out, she will not spare me." Moreover, looking at this scene, this woman's background does not seem to be simple. What is her background? Morong Yu groaned in his heart and could not help but move closer to the dense crowd. "I know. This person should be the legendary madam of the profound sect. In the crowd, not far from Morongyu, an immortal exclaimed, "What? You mean the incomparably noble madam of the profound sect? Why is she here today?" Another immortal exclaimed in shock, "What madam? Could she be the madam of the profound sect leader?" Morongyu moved closer and asked, "Legend has it that she is not the madam of the profound sect leader. It's just that her position in the profound sect is very special. Not only is she powerful, her authority in the profound sect is not below that of the sect leader. You could even say that she is the other sect leader of the profound sect." The immortal who knew the situation explained, "She is not the madam of the sect leader, but she has the full power of the sect leader." "Who is she?" The surrounding immortals were all shocked, their faces filled with disbelief. "No one knows her identity. At least, we don't know. However, we must not provoke her. She is not someone we can afford to offend." The immortal exclaimed in a low voice as he looked at the sedan chair in the sky with fear. On the other hand, Morongyu felt depressed. He felt that he was extremely unlucky. Why did he offend all the people he could not afford to offend after he ascended to the celestial realm? Fortunately, the black dog did not appear. Otherwise, my enemies would not be limited to just a few of them. Morongyu felt lucky. However, since the madam of the profound sect is here, I wonder if there are other powerhouses from the profound sect? I wonder if they can enter the ruins, Morongyu thought to himself. Perhaps they were intimidated by the profound sect's reputation, or perhaps they were intimidated by the unfathomable strength of the madam. The originally lofty, great, overarching golden celestials began to band together and enter the ruins with the madam of the profound sect. I wonder how strong the living dead are. Are they a match for these great, overarching golden celestials and overarching heavenly supreme celestials? The great, overarching golden celestials slowly flew toward the ruins. On the ground, many overarching heavenly supreme celestials were also heading toward the ruins. These great overarching golden celestials are really shameless. They are actually flying in the sky. I wonder if any of them can fly. Morongyu looked at the great overarching golden celestials in the sky with disdain. Although Morongyu had seen some of the living dead leaping in the sky, he was not sure if they could fly. That was why he had such doubts. Caw! Caw! Just as everyone was approaching the ruins, an extremely unpleasant sound suddenly rang out from the depths of the ruins. Following that, a large gray hand reached out from the depths of the ruins and grabbed the sedan chair in the sky. Chapter 396. You're courting death. When he saw the gray hand grabbing at the bridal sedan, Kong Shani, who was beside him, immediately let out a low roar. At the same time, he took a step forward and threw a punch. Bang! After a loud bang, Kong Shani seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. His entire body was sent flying like a broken rag doll. Halfway through, he even spat out a mouthful of blood. On the contrary, the gray hand did not stop at all. It continued to grab at the bridal sedan at an extremely fast speed. A golden immortal was injured and sent flying just like that. As for Kong Shani, he couldn't even move the giant gray hand at all. One could only imagine how terrifying that gray hand was. Its strength was at least much stronger than Kong Shani, a golden immortal. Otherwise, it would definitely not be able to injure him and send him flying with one strike. Get lost! At this moment, the four golden immortals carrying the palanquin shouted angrily at the same time. Each of them slapped out with one hand to meet the gray hand that was swiftly grabbing at them, intending to shatter it directly. Boom! With the combined strongest attack of the four golden immortals, Morongyu's hand in the void was still blocked. However, it was only blocked. After the earth-shattering explosion, the space began to distort rapidly. Layers of water like ripples appeared. Puff! The four golden immortals trembled violently, and then they spat out blood. However, even so, they maintained their motionless bodies and maintained the balance of the bridal sedan. It was as if they did not want the mysterious lady in the sedan to be hurt. Puff, waves of terrifying power swept in all directions, and the first to bear the brunt of it was the four golden immortals and the bridal sedan. Immediately, the four golden immortals spat out blood again. However, at this moment, a faint but extremely powerful aura suddenly erupted from the bridal sedan, resisting the impact of the terrifying power and preventing the bridal sedan from being destroyed. Gaga. An unpleasant and ear-piercing sound once again spread from the ruins. The gray hand that was blocked by the four golden immortals paused for a moment in the void before it once again grabbed at the bridal sedan. "You're courting death." That voice that made one's entire body go limp was heard once again. Following which, a slender, jade-like hand reached out from the bridal sedan and slowly patted the large gray hand. Looking at the slender hand, one of the fingers was missing, and there was even a black burn mark on the broken part. Murongyu, who was on the ground, couldn't help but laugh wildly in his heart. The missing finger was destroyed by Murongyu's yin-yang fire. However, what Murongyu didn't expect was that even though this woman was powerful, she still couldn't restore her finger. Generally speaking, if an immortal realm expert's body was injured, it was possible for them to repair the damaged body. For example, regrowing a severed arm was a piece of cake. Of course, there was a price to pay. For example, he would need certain pills, spirit herbs, or deplete his cultivation base. With the mysterious madam's strength and background, it was not difficult for her to repair a finger. However, why hadn't she repaired it? In other words, she was unable to repair the finger. Otherwise, with her personality, how could she tolerate such a huge flaw in her finger? In fact, if the mysterious madam knew that Murongyu was outside the ruins, she would probably give up on the idea of exploring the ruins and kill Murongyu. She was a perfectionist. After her finger was burned by Murongyu, she began to work on restoring it. However, what made her angry was that there seemed to be some kind of residual power at the place where her finger was severed. As long as her severed limb was regenerated, it would be burned immediately. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't get rid of the mysterious power that was attached to her finger. It was the power of the yin-yang fire. After the yin-yang fire burned the void, even the terrifying recovery power of the void couldn't restore it, let alone her. However, because of this, her murderous intent towards Murongyu became even fiercer. Bang! After an earth-shattering explosion, the two hands in the void, one big and one small, slammed into each other. A terrifying power exploded in an instant, and the big and small hands shattered at the same time. The shock wave from the collision almost tore the void apart. A few great, overarching golden celestials who were standing close to the two hands were sent flying by the shock wave as blood gushed out of their mouths. Bang! 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 The overarching heavenly supreme celestials on the ground were not as powerful as the great overarching golden celestials. The shock wave blasted dozens of overarching heavenly supreme celestials into blood mists. What a terrifying power! Everyone's hearts trembled. The great overarching golden celestials were also shocked. In particular, Kong Shani's face was filled with shock. Others might not know how powerful the mysterious madam was, but he knew very well how powerful she was. Originally, this madam's strength was much stronger than his. Previously, he had even broken through to the next stage with the help of the hot spring in the Luo Tian sect. His strength was unfathomable. However, such a powerful person was only able to fight the gray hand in the ruins to a draw. How powerful were the living dead in the ruins? Let's move on, the mysterious madam said with a snort. Everyone was shocked, but they had no choice but to move on. However, these great overarching golden celestials were clearly afraid of the mysterious madam. They subconsciously moved closer to her. Swoosh! At this moment, a black figure suddenly appeared in the sky above the ruins. It was a gray-clad, middle-aged man. He was tall and burly. If it was not for the death aura around him, he would have been a majestic powerhouse. The gray-clad man hovered in the air as he looked at the mysterious madam and the others with his hollow eyes. The muscles on his face twitched as a strange smile appeared on his face. Huh, humans, trespassers, die. The gray-clad middle-aged man's voice was unpleasant to the ears. Before he could finish speaking, his body flashed and transformed into a gray streak of light as he charged toward the mysterious madam in the bridal sedan. Upon seeing this, the great overarching golden celestials moved as well. Bang! The gray-clad middle-aged man merely struck with his palm. A deafening explosion rang out as the great overarching golden celestials were sent flying. A few unlucky great overarching golden celestials were even smashed into pieces. The great overarching golden celestials were nothing in front of the gray-clad man. After sending the great overarching golden celestials flying, the gray-clad middle-aged man went straight for the mysterious madam in the bridal sedan. It seemed as though he had set his mind on the mysterious madam. Perhaps the mysterious madam was the strongest among them, so he wanted to capture the leader first. Those from the great Luo golden immortal sect who had been sent flying by the palm felt very embarrassed. Just as they were about to rush up and fight with this middle-aged man, one figure after another soared into the sky from the ruins and attacked them. All of them could fly. They were at least great overarching golden celestials. At the same time, more and more zombies emerged from the ground and charged toward the great overarching heavenly supreme celestials. There's so many zombies. Don't tell me all the disciples of the ancient sect have turned into zombies? The great overarching heavenly supreme celestials outside the ruins were shocked when they saw the zombies. I have a feeling that the gray-clad man isn't the strongest one. There must be another one in the ruins. That person might be the king. Murong frowned as he looked at the ruins. Bang! 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 In just a blink of an eye, the gray-clad man had already exchanged a few blows with the mysterious madam. Terrifying energy exploded, causing the four great overarching golden celestials to stagger and spit out blood. Bang! Boom! Finally, after the two of them exchanged another blow, the four great overarching golden celestials were sent flying. Even the bridal sedan was shattered by the terrifying energy. A figure soared into the sky and then stood in the air. Murong looked over and saw a beautiful purple-clad woman hovering in the air with a murderous look on her face. She was glaring at the middle-aged man coldly. Murong was stunned when he saw the purple-clad woman hovering in the air. He thought to himself, she looks better when she's naked. At the same time, those words were even more baffling. Swoosh! Swoosh! Countless pairs of eyes instantly turned to look at Murong. One of them even contained a shocking, killing intent. Murong turned pale with fright. He followed the gaze and saw the purple-clad woman glaring at him with a murderous look. It can't be. She can hear me from so far away. All the hairs on Murong's body stood on end. Without a second thought, he shot off into the distance. Where do you think you're going? The purple-clad woman was looking at the middle-aged man coldly, but a familiar voice suddenly sounded. Naked? So far, only one person had seen her naked body, and that was Suda. She lowered her head and saw that Suda was standing on the ground, looking at her with lustful eyes. When enemies meet, their eyes turn red. The moment she saw Murong, the purple-clad woman couldn't help the murderous look in her heart. She gave up on the middle-aged man and slapped at Murong. Brother walking corpse, that purple-clothed woman is vicious. Hurry up and kill her. Murong cried out as he raised his body and shot off into the distance. She seemed to have heard Murong's words. The moment the purple-clad woman made her move, the middle-aged man in gray also punched at the purple-clad woman. Feeling the terrifying power of the middle-aged man, the purple-clad woman was furious. However, she didn't give up on attacking Murong. She just stretched out her other hand and slapped at the middle-aged man. She wanted to temporarily block the middle-aged man's attack and kill Murong first. Chapter 397. The purple-clothed woman's attack didn't appear to be fierce. Instead, it was just a slender, jade-like hand that broke through the barrier of space and quickly pressed down on Murong. who was flying away. Wherever her slender hand passed, layers of ripples appeared in the void. It was very terrifying. This move again. Do you believe that I won't burn another section of your finger? Morongyu let out a strange cry. His speed soared again as he shot into the distance. Hearing this, the purple-clothed woman's movements suddenly stopped. In this way, the distance between Morongyu and her was once again pulled apart. At the same time that Morongyu's voice was heard, many people near the ruins immediately looked at Morongyu and the purple-clothed woman with curious eyes. The purple-clothed woman was an almost perfect woman, but she had a section of her finger missing. In fact, when the purple-clothed woman first made her move, the nearby immortals had already seen this place. However, although they felt that it was strange, they felt that it was natural. After all, it was inevitable that they would have it in their hands. However, when Morongyu's word spread, the surrounding people were instantly shocked. Obviously, this purple-clothed woman was some kind of madam and had the same power as the sect master of the Shin sect. Even though her strength was also very powerful, far stronger than these golden immortals. And Morongyu was only an exalted immortal. With his strength, he could actually burn a section of the purple-clothed woman's finger? Was Morongyu that powerful? Everyone did not want to believe it, but they had to, because at this moment, the purple-clothed woman was filled with killing intent. Who exactly is this person? How can he have such strength? Many immortals were looking at Morongyu with curious eyes. At the same time, wherever Morongyu passed by, they all retreated, afraid that they would be implicated. Her slender hand was extremely fast, quickly closing the distance between her and Morongyu. Morongyu turned pale with fright. This woman's strength is even stronger than before. The reason for this was because after Morongyu's strength reached the ascendant immortal realm, his speed had skyrocketed again. However, his speed was like a snail in front of the purple-clothed woman. Rumble. Just as the purple-clothed woman's jade-like hand was about to touch Morongyu's body, the terrifying power that erupted from her jade-like hand caused Morongyu's hair to stand on end and his skin to hurt. However, at this moment, the gray-clothed, middle-aged man's attack had already arrived in front of the purple-clothed woman. It enveloped her and was about to kill her. It was a long story, but all of this happened in an instant. Rumble. The attack of the purple-clothed woman and the power of the gray-clothed man collided violently, exploding with a terrifying power. Humph! The purple-clothed woman let out a muffled groan. Her entire body seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. She was actually sent flying by the gray-clothed middle-aged man. Perhaps because of the attack, her jade-like hand that was chasing Morongyu disappeared the moment before Morongyu was about to escape in a Hichu Luoshu. The four of you, take down that Suda for me. The purple-clothed woman snorted angrily and turned around to fight with the gray-clothed man. The four golden immortals who were carrying the palanquin turned around and chased after Morongyu. As for the others, they had already started fighting with many of the living dead in the ruins, causing the sky to fall and the earth to crack and the sun and moon to dim. I lost a woman, but there are four more golden immortals. Morongyu groaned in his heart. He was about to stop, but he once again increased his speed to the limit and shot into the distance. The four golden immortals of Shin sect did not give up and chased after Morongyu. Although I have reached the ascendant immortal realm, I can only fight with an ordinary golden immortal at most. A golden immortal can still kill me with a finger. This damned woman. Morongyu kept cursing the purple-clothed woman in his heart, but he quickly shot toward the exit of the ruins. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The four golden immortals were not slow either. They even gradually closed the distance between them and Morongyu. In fact, during this process, the four of them had even sent out waves of frightening energy towards Morongyu in an attempt to kill him. However, Morongyu's speed would not let their attacks fall on him. However, the aftermath of the power still kept hitting his body, making him suffer unspeakably. Whoosh! Morongyu finally rushed out of the ruins. The moment he rushed out, his figure flashed and disappeared into thin air. He had already entered the Hichu Luoshu world. Immediately after, the four golden immortals who were chasing Morong Yu also rushed out at the same time. Just as they were about to continue chasing, they suddenly realized that they had lost track of Morong Yu. Where did Suda go? The four golden immortals looked at each other with puzzled expressions. Although Suda is fast, he definitely can't run that far. He must be hiding nearby. Let's spread out and find him. A golden immortal said after pondering for a moment. The other three nodded. That was the only way. If Morong Yu really escaped, not only would the world laugh at them, even if it was the anger of the purple-clothed woman, they would not be able to bear it. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The four golden immortals flew in four different directions. At the same time, they spread out their huge divine senses and covered a large area, beginning to search for Morong Yu. However, they did not know that the person they were looking for was at the exit of the ruins. He was hiding in the Hichu Luoshu world and was looking at them with a sneer. Boy, do you want us to kill him? I haven't even eaten the meat of a golden immortal. I wonder how it tastes. The large black dog kept jumping around Morong Yu, drooling as he gave Morong Yu bad ideas. Okay, if you can kill them, I'll let you out. Morong Yu looked at the large black dog and sneered. The large black dog rolled his eyes. If brothers work together, their sharpness can cut through metal. As long as we work together, we might really be able to kill a golden immortal. At that time, when this matter spreads out, it will definitely cause a commotion in the immortal world. Think about it. An exalted immortal killing a golden immortal. How famous would that be? The large black dog was still unwilling to give up on persuading Morong Yu. Morong Yu kicked the large black dog away. F***CK. I'm your brother. You my brother too. Woof, woof, woof. The large black dog fell in the distance, then got up and barked at Morong Yu. Morong Yu was furious. Get lost. Woof, woof, woof. The large black dog only barked at Morong Yu. Morong Yu frowned slightly. He did not want to let go of these four golden immortals. However, with his current strength, even if he used all kinds of divine objects and a yin-yang flame, he could not kill them. After all, they were golden immortals, and the gap between their realms was too big. The only thing that could be compared now was their speed. However, even in terms of speed, Morong Yu could not compare to them. Forget it. I'll leave them alive first. When my strength increases in the future, I'll kill them. Morong Yu sneered. Just as he was about to enter the ruins again, boom, an earth-shattering sound suddenly spread out from the ruins. At the same time, an extremely terrifying air wave directly collapsed the entrance of the ruins, shattering the illusion of the entrance. With a swoosh, the terrifying force sent Hichu Luoshu flying. What's going on? Inside Hitu and Luoshu, Morong Yu was violently shaken, his face filled with shock. However, he was not injured. Could it be that the ruins have collapsed? Morong Yu was shocked and quickly returned to the entrance of the ruins. Swoosh, swoosh. However, the four perfected golden immortals who were chasing after Morong Yu were one step ahead of him. They rushed into the ruins. Swoosh. After a moment, the four immortals rushed out of the ruins again. Not long after, the purple-robed woman also rushed out of the ruins. However, at this moment, she was in a very sorry state. Her purple clothes were torn in many places, revealing her skin that was like mutton fat. Moreover, there was a trace of fear on her face. Even this woman has rushed out in such a panic. What exactly happened in the ruins? Could it be that the king in the ruins has shown his might? Morong Yu was shocked. Let's go. The purple-robed woman snorted angrily and rushed into the sky first. She led the four golden immortals and shot into the distance. Swoosh, swoosh. After the purple-robed woman, a few more golden immortals rushed out of the ruins in a sorry state. These people were even more sorry than the purple-robed woman, and all of them were injured. After dozens of golden immortals rushed out, no one else rushed out of the ruins. Just when Morong Yu thought that the immortals in the ruins had been killed, a small figure shot out from the entrance of the ruins and fell to the ground. It was a child, a little girl about 7 or 8 years old. When Murong saw the little girl, he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Whose child is this? Murong was puzzled. This was a ruin. Who would bring their child to take the risk? Murong didn't immediately go over to check. Instead, he was still in the Hichu Luoshu world. After waiting for a long time, no one came out of the ruins. Those who came out before seemed to have seen a ghost. They all hurriedly fled from this place. It was as if something had happened in the ruins that made them extremely frightened. Whose family does this little girl belong to? Murong couldn't bear it in the end. He walked out of the Hichu Luoshu world and approached the little girl who had fallen to the ground. At this time, it had been some time since the little girl rushed out, but she was still lying on the ground motionless. Perhaps she had already fainted. Chapter 398. Although Murong was puzzled as to who would bring a child into a relic, seeing that the little girl was lying motionless on the ground, he still carried her up. The little girl's clothes were tattered and her face was stained, covering her original face. However, after Murong carried her up, he saw that the little girl's face showed traces of pain. Her eyebrows were slightly furrowed, as if she was experiencing something painful. However, the little girl was indeed unconscious. Even when Murong carried her, she did not react. I wonder whose child this is. Murong frowned slightly as he used his divine telekinesis to explore the little girl's body. There are no injuries? After Murong used divine telekinesis explored the little girl's body, he did not find any injuries on her body. She should have just fainted. Could it be that she was only knocked out? Murong guessed in his heart. Since the little girl was not injured, Murong did not need to inject the power of life to heal her. Just as Murong's divine telekinesis was about to leave the little girl's body, he frowned slightly. Just now, Murong actually discovered a very weak but very dangerous power in the little girl's body. This power was so weak that Murong almost could not detect it. However, this almost invisible power gave Murong a very dangerous feeling. He even felt that if this power were to explode, he was afraid that he would be killed immediately. Who exactly is this little girl? Murong was shocked. Her body looked like that of an ordinary person, but contained such a terrifying power. Now, Murong was even more curious about the little girl's identity. What kind of power is that? Why is it so terrifying? Murong was deep in thought. Big brother, who are you? Why are you hugging me? At this moment, a young voice sounded in Murong's ears, waking Murong from his thoughts. Murong secretly felt ashamed. With his strength, he did not notice when the little girl woke up. If the little girl was his enemy, then Murong would have died many times over. Little girl, why are you alone in the relic? Where's your family? Murong did not answer. Instead, he asked. Hearing this, the little girl frowned slightly, her face showing a painful expression. After a long time, she replied, I don't remember. Big brother, where is this place? Murong was speechless. This is the Tsong Mountain ruins. You just came out from there. That relic actually collapsed? While speaking, Murong noticed the relic. However, he discovered that the ruins were long gone. Even the entrance to the ruins had collapsed. In other words, the relic had completely collapsed. Except for the dozens of immortals who escaped, the rest had been buried in the relic. Murong secretly felt lucky. If it were not for the 4 golden immortals chasing him, he would have been buried in the relic. Of course, Murong was not too worried about being buried in the relic. After all, he had Hichu Luoshu. Even if the relic collapsed, it was impossible to bury him. When Murong was looking at the entrance of the relic, he did not notice that the little girl in his arms was also looking at the entrance of the relic. Her face showed a sad expression. Little girl, do you really not remember anything? Murong asked with a headache. Big brother, I really don't remember anything. By the way, big brother, do you know my name? Do you know where my family is? Also, what's your name? The little girl was a little girl after all. When she knew that she couldn't remember anything, she still had a pained expression on her face. But now, there was no longer any pained expression on her face. On the contrary, she had become a curious baby. She was looking at Murongyu with a curious face and asking questions. Hearing the little girl's series of questions, Murongyu suddenly felt a headache. He could only say, "My name is Murongyu. I'm a good person. You have to remember. But I don't know about your family." "Well, Big Brother Murongyu is a good person," the little girl said with a sweet smile. Murongyu nodded and agreed with the little girl's words. However, he was a little depressed about the little girl's identity and where to go. He guessed that the little girl's family or relatives had been buried in the relic, and the little girl might have lost her memory because of the previous shock and couldn't remember anything. If she didn't know anything, how could Murongyu send her home? Was he just going to leave her here? But Murongyu couldn't do it? Should he take her with him? Or put her in the Hichu Luoshu world? Murongyu hesitated again. After all, although the little girl was young and had lost her memory, she was still in the immortal world. However, she was still someone from the immortal world, and because of her age, it was especially easy for her to reveal the secret of Hitu and Luoshu. "Well, the little girl is from the immortal world?" Murongyu suddenly frowned. Generally speaking, there were no mortals in the immortal world. Even a newborn baby had a certain level of strength, but the little girl in front of him was just like an ordinary mortal. Murongyu couldn't see any realm of her. There were only two situations where he couldn't see the other party's realm. Then the other party was indeed immortal. Maybe she was much stronger than Murongyu. Even if she hid her strength, at most he could only see the other party's specific strength. But he could still see that the other party was not an ordinary person. The little girl's strength was much stronger than Murongyu's. Murongyu wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death, because the little girl was really a little girl. She was not like those powerful young immortals. Because no matter who it was, they could maintain their youthful appearance, but they definitely couldn't maintain the realm of a few years old. Moreover, the little girl's face looked very childish. She was just a little girl. Why would there be mortals in the immortal world? Murongyu was even more curious. "Little girl, where are you going next?" Murongyu lowered his head to look at the little girl in his arms and asked. "Wherever Big Brother Murong goes, I'll go." The little girl looked at Murongyu and smiled sweetly. "That's a little inappropriate, isn't it?" Murongyu said hesitantly. Hearing this, the little girl immediately looked like she was about to cry. "Big Brother, even you don't want me anymore?" Murongyu felt a headache coming on. After thinking for a while, he said, "All right, since that's the case, you can stay by my side for the time being. But once you recover your memory or find your family, you'll have to go back." The little girl quickly nodded. "Before that, I have to remind you, although you're Big Brother Murong, that is, I'm a very good person, but in this world, it's the hardest for good people to survive. Therefore, I have a lot of enemies. That's because all the bad things they did were all ruined by me. So, a lot of people want to kill me." The little girl nodded and said, "I won't drag Big Brother down. If you meet a powerful enemy, just throw me away. I won't drag you down." Murongyu was speechless. That wasn't what he meant. "Don't worry, your Big Brother Murong, you won't abandon you." Murongyu looked at the little girl and said seriously. Murongyu was quite sympathetic to this little girl who had lost her memory. "Hee, I know Big Brother won't abandon me. When I'm strong in the future, I'll help Big Brother kill those bad guys." The little girl said with a smile. "By the way, Big Brother, I still don't know my name. Can you give me a name?" The little girl looked at Murongyu with a hopeful look. Okay, Murongyu didn't want the little girl to have no name. But what name should he give her? This was a headache. He looked at the little girl. Seeing the little girl in purple clothes, he immediately had an idea and said, "You'll be called Little Z from now on? What do you think of this name?" "Very good. I like it very much." "Thank you, Big Brother." Little Z smiled sweetly. "Well, let's leave here now." Immediately, Murongyu picked up Little Z and flew out of Song Mountain. "Big Brother, where are we going?" "Halfway." Little Z suddenly asked. "To the city. Your clothes are too tattered and your body is very dirty. You need to clean up." Murongyu replied. At the same time, they flew toward the small city. "Big Brother, are you going to buy me new clothes?" "I like new clothes the most." Little Z was obviously very excited. Looking at her excited face, Murongyu didn't know why he was happy in his heart. His parents died when he was young. Although he was a direct descendant of the Murong family in the Great Xia dynasty, he didn't have any status in the family. When he was little Z's age, he had already done rough work in the Murong family. How could he have a childhood? Not to mention that no one bought him new clothes. Even the clothes on his body were full of holes and bullied. If little Z's relatives are buried in the relics, then, in her situation, she won't live long in the immortal realm. Murong sympathized with little Z. At such a young age, with no strength, how could she survive in this cruel world? If little Z really doesn't have any relatives, then I can only raise her by myself. Murong thought in his heart. Raising little Z was not a problem for him at all. Big brother, is the city in front of us? I haven't seen a city yet. Seeing the city in the distance, little Z's face showed a look of excitement, as if she had never seen a city before. You haven't seen a city before? Murong looked down at little Z and asked, with a flash of doubt in his eyes. Yes, I only remember you. I don't remember anything else. Little Z said with a sweet smile. Chapter 399. Only a few people managed to escape from the collapse of the Tsang Mountain ruins. The rest were all wiped out. News of this spread out immediately. The collapse of the ruins was definitely a disaster for all the sects in Jiang State City. Because of the appearance of the ruins, all the sects in Jiang State had people enter the ruins. Some sects even turned out in full force. Even a sect like the Luotian sect had lost a golden immortal. Especially the Luotian sect, even their sect master, Kong Shani, had been buried in the ruins. Some of the other sects also had some golden immortals die inside. None of the immortals below the golden immortal realm escaped. The major sects in Jiang State had suffered heavy losses. Perhaps, because of this incident, the situation in Jiang State would change. Some of the sects that had suffered heavy losses would be destroyed by other sections. Some sects would take the opportunity to rise. Thus, when Murong entered Azure Mountain City, the small city appeared to be very quiet. It was the calm before the storm, which made people feel stifled. However, this had nothing to do with Murong. Even if the heavenly realm was turned upside down, it had nothing to do with him. After all, he was alone in the immortal world. Now, there was little Z. At this moment, Murong was bringing little Z into a clothing store. In the immortal world, there are all kinds of shops, just like in the mortal world. However, the clothes sold in the immortal world were not just ordinary clothes, but some magic treasures. Of course, it was impossible for ordinary shops to sell clothes of the immortal level, at least not in Song Mountain City, because not many people could afford to buy them. However, the clothes sold in these shops were at least of the spiritual level, and there were even 9th grade spiritual level clothes. However, clothes at the level of spiritual tools were not rare in the immortal world. In fact, they were very cheap. They were just ordinary clothes. There were many female immortals in the clothing store, and the shop assistants were trying their best to promote their products with flattering smiles. Seeing Murong and little Z enter, no shop assistant came out to greet them. Murong stood in the shop with little Z in his arms for a while, but still no shop assistant came to greet them. He could not help but frown. Big brother, that dress looks good. I want that dress. At this time, little Z saw a set of purple clothes on the clothes rack and could not help but cheer. She broke free from Murong's embrace and rushed towards the clothes. Where did this beggar come from? Scram! Before little purple could reach that piece of clothing, a shop assistant suddenly rushed out from behind and shouted at little purple angrily. Then, she slapped little Z hard. After all, little Z was just a mortal little girl, while the shop assistant was a celestial immortal. If he deliberately attacked, how could little Z resist? Murong's eyes were brimming with killing intent. You're courting death. With a loud shout, Murong stepped forward and hugged little Z in his arms. At the same time, he slapped the man who attacked little Z. Slap! Murong slapped the shop assistant's face, and his teeth flew out. Half of his face was swollen like a steamed bun, and his whole body was directly slapped away. Bang! 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 The shop assistant directly flew into the air and broke countless clothes racks. Finally, He hit the wall and fell down, vomiting blood. To begin with, Muronyu was already annoyed by how those bastards looked down on him. Later, these bastards even attacked Little Z, which made Muronyu unable to restrain his anger. Therefore, in the end, he did not show any mercy when he slapped the despicable shop assistant. His slap almost broke the despicable shop assistant's cheek. Muronyu only wanted to punish him a little. Otherwise, he would have been killed by Muronyu's slap. Where did this wild boy come from? How dare you behave so atrociously here? I think you're courting death. Seeing Muronyu hit the shop assistants in the shop shouted and jumped out to surround Muronyu. These despicable bastards. Muronyu's heart was burning with rage. Little Z's clothes were ragged, and her face was full of stains. And he was almost the same as Little Z because of the mysterious lady's attack and the pursuit of the four almighty immortals. Because of this, when Muronyu and Little Z entered the clothing shop, the shop assistants were too lazy to greet them, because they thought that Muronyu and Little Z were beggars. Could such people afford to buy clothes? No. Therefore, they were too lazy to greet them. It was more practical to sell clothes to the other women in the shop. Especially when they saw Little Z running to the purple clothes, the shop assistants could not help but make a move. That clothes was a 9th grade spiritual weapon. Once it was stained by Little Z, how could it be sold in the future? How dare you behave atrociously here? Boy, die. A shop assistant smiled grimly, took a step forward, and slapped out his big hand, directly grabbing Muronyu's head, trying to smash Muronyu's head. His move was extremely vicious. A cold light flashed in Muronyu's eyes. He snorted coldly and punched out. Puff! Ah! Muronyu's fist moved forward and directly smashed the shop assistant's fist into powder. The shop assistant cried out in pain and immediately retreated as he stared at Muronyu with a terrified look on his face. Let's go together and take him down, a shop assistant shouted. At the same time, the rest of the shop assistants attacked Muronyu at the same time. Big brother, be careful. Seeing 5 or 6 shop assistants attacking Muronyu directly, Little Z, who was in Muronyu's arms, could not help but exclaim, "It's okay." Muronyu patted the boy's little head and then glanced at the shop assistants with cold eyes. He snorted coldly and slapped out. Bang! 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 The shop assistants screamed in pain, and all of them were sent flying by Muronyu. There's no need for this shop to exist. Muronyu glanced at the shop with murderous intent, and then his body swayed, and he stepped out of the shop. Break it for me! Muronyu shouted and slapped out, covering the shop. A terrifying force burst out, and the shop was directly smashed into powder. But fortunately, whether it was the shop assistants or the shop assistants, they had already rushed out before Muronyu attacked. Otherwise, they would have been buried inside. Boy, don't leave if you have the guts. Wait for my boss to come. You'll be in trouble. A shop assistant gritted his teeth and looked at Muronyu angrily. Muronyu laughed, and his face was full of disdain. So what if I don't leave? What could trash like you do to me? Big brother, there are no more clothes. I don't have new clothes to wear. At this time, Little Z looked at Muronyu with a depressed face and said. Muronyu was startled at first, and then he smiled and said, "It's okay. They're not the only ones selling clothes in the city. But these clothes are not good. Big brother will give you a better one later." Really? Little Z looked at Muronyu with excitement. Muronyu nodded and said with a smile, "Really? I'm not lying to you. That's great." Little Z clapped her hands and smiled, and her face was full of impatience. "Then let's go. I want to wear new clothes." Muronyu nodded and was about to leave with Little Z in his arms. Boy, don't leave if you have the guts. Seeing Muronyu was about to leave, the shop assistants quickly jumped out and stopped Muronyu. "Get out of my way." Muronyu's eyes flashed fiercely, and he coldly shouted. The shop assistants were frightened, and then they remembered Muronyu's ferocious power. They were so scared that they quickly jumped out and did not dare to continue to stop him. Muronyu slowly left with Little Z in his arms. "When your boss comes, tell him that my name is Suda of the Black Sieve sect. I will be staying in Song Mountain City for a while, If you are not afraid of death, come find me. Murong Yu's voice spread far away, and then he left with little Z in his arms. Laxiv Sak Suda. The shop assistants looked at Murong Yu's back with gritted teeth, and firmly remembered Murong Yu's name in their hearts. Little Z's body was too dirty, and she did not have any strength, so it was difficult for her to use her own power to clean her body like Murong Yu. Therefore, Murong Yu could only find an inn in the city and get a room to let little Z clean herself. Big brother, help me bathe. After helping little Z prepare the bath water, Murong Yu was about to leave the room when little Z suddenly said. Murong Yu staggered and said with an embarrassed face, "We are men and women. Little Z, you should do it yourself." "No, before, there were people who helped me bathe. I don't know how to do it." Little Z said, "I'll learn it slowly." Murong Yu closed the door with a bitter smile on his face. Although little Z was only a 7 or 8-year-old girl, she was still a girl. How could he help her bathe? Seeing Murong Yu run out of the room in a sorry state, a sly smile appeared on little Z's face. "Big brother, are you still outside?" Little Z suddenly asked. "Yes." Murong Yu replied. "Big brother, yes. Big brother, I'm done. Quickly get me some new clothes." Little Z said, "Is it really healed?" "It's really healed." "Well, I'm coming in." Murong Yu opened the door and went in, only to see little Z wrapped in a bath towel, standing in the room and looking at him with a sweet smile. Looking at little Z, Murong Yu was stunned. Little Z's little face was dirty before, and he could not see her face clearly. But after the bath, little Z's original face was completely revealed. She had delicate features and was sparkling and translucent. Her skin was white with a tinge of red, pink, and tender. She was extremely cute. She was clearly a little beauty. When this little one grows up, she'll definitely be a stunning beauty who can bring disaster to a country. Murong Yu thought to himself as he handed a purple ribbon to little Z. Chapter 400. The purple ribbon fluttered like a purple cloud in the sky. "Big brother, what is this? I want new clothes." Xiaozi looked at Murong Yu with a puzzled expression. "This is the clothes." Murong Yu took little Z's hand, and before little Z could react, he squeezed out a drop of blood from her fingertip and dripped it onto the purple ribbon. This is an immortal tool level immortal robe called the Purple Ribbon Immortal Robe. After it recognizes you as its owner, it will automatically change according to your wishes. This way, you don't have to buy new clothes. Murong Yu didn't care if little Z understood or not, and just said so. "Really?" Little Z looked at Murong Yu with a sweet smile on her face. "Why don't you try it and you'll know?" Murong Yu said with a smile. Little Z nodded and muttered in her heart. Sure enough, the Purple Ribbon Immortal Robe turned into a purple robe, exactly the same as the one she was wearing before. It really is like this. "Thank you, big brother." After little Z changed the clothes, she immediately jumped into Murong Yu's arms and hugged Murong Yu's back with both hands. With a paw sound, she fiercely kissed Murong Yu's face. "You little girl, your saliva is all over my face." Murong Yu glared at her. Little Z giggled and then kissed Murong Yu's face a few more times, leaving his face full of saliva. Then before Murong Yu could say anything, she jumped out of Murong Yu's arms and ran to the side, constantly changing her clothes. Looking at the excited little Z, Murong Yu just smiled and watched from the side. He felt that giving the Purple Ribbon Immortal Robe to little Z was the right thing to do. After all, the Purple Ribbon Immortal Robe was useless to him. It would be a waste on him, so it was better to give it to little Z. Seeing little Z so happy now, Murong Yu also felt happy. "Big brother, I'm hungry." After playing for a long time, little Z ran to Murong Yu's side again and looked at Murong Yu pitifully. "Okay, let's go eat." Murong Yu picked up little Z and left the inn to go to the best restaurant in Song Mountain City. Then, he ordered a table full of dishes and also grabbed the big black dog from the Hichu Luoshu world. The three of them began to eat heartily in the restaurant. "Woof! Lord Tengu has finally come out of that damn place. I almost suffocated to death." The large black dog sat on a chair as if he were a human. He grabbed a piece of meat with one paw and a bottle of wine with the other paw. He spoke loudly as he ate. When the big black dog came out, Little Purple opened her big watery eyes wide and looked at the big black dog curiously. The large black dog can even speak? How fun! Little Z looked at the big black dog and smiled. Her big watery eyes narrowed into a crescent shape. At the same time, she used all her strength to pick up a piece of meat and put it in a plate in front of the big black dog. Big black dog, big brother must have locked you up for a long time. You must be very hungry. You are so pitiful. There are many dishes here. Eat more. Little Z looked at the big black dog. She was overflowing with sympathy at such a young age. Looking at Little Z, the big black dog was speechless. He was too embarrassed to continue wolfing down the food. Big brother, can you not lock up the big black dog in the future? Look at how hungry he is. It is so pitiful. Little Z looked at Murong Yu pitifully and begged. Don't worry. The big black dog won't starve even if he doesn't eat or drink. Eat more. Murong Yu said as he picked up a piece of meat for Little Z. Little Z nodded fiercely, then looked at the big black dog and asked, Big black dog, are you really okay if you don't eat or drink? Woof. Food is the most important thing to a dog. How can I not eat? Your big brother is a bad person. He locked me up in a small dark room and didn't let me out. He also didn't give me food. I was almost starving. The big black dog sneaked the big dog closer to Little Z and said softly, Big black dog, you're speaking ill of Big brother. Big brother is not a bad person. He's a good person. If you speak ill of him again, I won't give you any food. Little Z glared at the big black dog and said. The big black dog was speechless. He turned to look at Murong Yu and said, You are a good person? You are really a good person? The big black dog asked speechlessly in his heart. Of course I am a good person. A very good person. Murong Yu laughed. I'm also a good person. No, I'm a good dog. The big black dog smiled embarrassedly and said, You're a bad dog. I am ignoring you. The little guy glared at the big black dog. Obviously, speaking ill of Murong Yu to the big black dog made the little girl angry. Ha ha. At the sight of this, Murong Yu burst into laughter. The situation in Jiangzhou has changed recently. After the Tsang Mountain relic, many sects suffered heavy losses. Some of the sect's experts were even buried in the Tsang Mountain relic. These days, many sects have been destroyed or merged with other sections. At this time, the discussion of other diners in the restaurant reached Murong Yu's ears. Murong Yu had long expected this kind of thing to happen in Jiangzhou, so he was not surprised. However, Murong Yu's interest was piqued by their conversation. The head of the Luotian sect, Kong Shani, and another perfected golden immortal elder have both died in the Tsang Mountain ruins. Not long ago, the last perfected golden immortal of the Luotian sect was also killed by many experts. It is said that they want to occupy Luotian sect. Luotian sect? Although Luotian sect strength is not bad, is it worth such a big fuss? Moreover, isn't Luotian sect a subsidiary sect of mysterious sect? Who dares to touch Luotian sect? Shoo, I heard that mysterious sect acquiesced this time. Mysterious sect even has the idea of directly occupying Luotian sect. An immortal looked around and finally said softly, even mysterious sect wants to occupy them? What's so special about Luotian sect's cultivation technique? No, if it's really related to Luotian sect's cultivation technique, why is Luotian sect still an unrated sect? They don't even have a 9 heavens Xian immortal expert? I heard that they are not after Luotian sect's cultivation technique, nor are they after their treasures or their disciples, but a hot spring in Luotian sect. Hot spring? Everyone laughed after hearing this. It's just a hot spring. Is it worth it for them to make such a big fuss? They even want to seize mysterious sect? Hearing this, Murong Yu's heart moved. When he had just ascended to the immortal world, he had fallen into this hot spring. As soon as he came into contact with the hot spring, Murong Yu felt that the hot spring was not simple. It was definitely not an ordinary hot spring. That hot spring is not simple. It said that if you cultivate in that hot spring, you can achieve twice the results with half the effort. It can even prevent you from going berserk. It has an extremely powerful effect. Is it that magical? If that's the case, how could Luotian Sect protect that hot spring? An immortal said in disbelief. I believe everyone knows about the mysterious lady of mysterious sect who has been in the limelight recently. It said that her strength was not as strong as it is now. Moreover, she has been stagnant in her previous realm for a long time. The reason why she could successfully break through this realm this time is entirely because of Luotian Sect's hot spring. Really? The surrounding crowd was shocked. It's definitely true. I heard it from a friend of mysterious sect's disciple. The immortal who spoke said in a firm tone, "It's that magical?" Muronyu frowned slightly, but he began to ponder in his heart. He cultivated the chaotic celestial record, and his cultivation speed was extremely fast. He also did not have to worry about going berserk. However, it was different for others, especially for those cultivators who used immortal ascension pills and immortal expansion pills to directly increase their realm. They were not stable at all and could easily go berserk. If this hot spring really had such an effect, then he could consider taking it for himself. No matter what, I have to take this hot spring for myself. Murongyu's eyes shone brightly. For others, if they wanted to take over the hot spring, they would have to take over Luotian Sect. However, if they did that, they would definitely not be able to take over the hot spring. There are definitely many people who had their eyes on this hot spring. If you were not strong enough, then it would be taken over by others. Unless you could uproot this hot spring and take it all with you. However, they could not. Even Mysterious Sect could not take this hot spring away. Otherwise, they would have already made their move. Mysterious Sect did not make their move directly because Luotian Sect was their subordinate sect. They could not make a move directly. If Murongyu's guess wasn't wrong, the Profound Sect would immediately take action and exterminate the other sects as soon as they tried to seize the Luotian Gate. After that, they would naturally take over the hot spring for their own use. However, if it was Murongyu, although he was alone, once he got the hot spring, then he could take it with him. Even if others had their eyes on him, unless they killed him, they would not be able to get the hot spring. This was because the hot spring was in the Hichu, Luoshu world. I must get the hot spring before Mysterious Sect makes their move. Otherwise, Mysterious Sect will have too many experts. With my current strength, it will be difficult to make a move. After thinking for a while, Muronyu decided to wait for Little Z to finish eating before leaving for Luotian Sect. Seeing Muronyu in deep thought, Little Z turned her head to look at Muronyu and asked, "Big brother, why aren't you eating?" "I'm full. You guys eat." Muronyu smiled and picked up the napkin to wipe the rice grains from the corner of Little Z's mouth. Little Z smiled sweetly at Muronyu and then lowered her head to continue eating. However, Muronyu did not see that the moment Little Z lowered her head, there was a look of gratitude in her eyes. Her pair of big, watery eyes were covered with a layer of mist. "Big brother, you are so good to me. Little Z will keep it in mind. Little Z will also be very, very good to Big brother," Little Z secretly said in her heart. Chapter 4:01. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Muronyu left the restaurant with Little Z and the big black dog, intending to go to the Luotian Sect. With such a heaven-defying existence like Hichu Luoshu, Muronyu didn't need to be in a hurry like others. With a flash, the three of them entered the Hichu Luoshu world. Looking at the sudden change of scenery in front of her, Little Z was shocked and confused. In the end, after Murongyu's explanation, Little Z roughly understood that this space change was because they were in the space of a magic treasure. However, when Muronyu wanted to leave her and the big black dog in the Hichu Luoshu world, she refused to obey. However, now Muronyu was going out to fight with others this time. If he took Little Z with him, it would be inconvenient. Moreover, in the battle, with Little Z's mortal physique, how could she withstand the aftermath of their battle? Therefore, for little Z's safety, Muron, you just wanted her to stay in the Hichu Luoshu world. However, in the end, Muron, you still had no choice but to take little Z with him and leave the Hichu Luoshu world. However, Muron, you had the little black dog carry her on its back. He also instructed the big black dog to retreat as far away as possible if it noticed anything amiss. Riding on the big black dog, Little Purple was very excited and kept chattering nonstop. The big black dog could only be bitterly treated as Little Z's mount. With a swish, Muron Yu and the other two appeared in the hot spring of the Luotian sect. As early as when Muron Yu just ascended to the immortal world, he had already put many transmission jade slips here. Therefore, he could directly appear in the hot spring. As soon as he appeared, Muron Yu immediately noticed that something was amiss. When he first came here, it was also surrounded by white mist, and there were only a few people in the hot spring. But now, as soon as Muron Yu appeared, his spiritual will detected a few immortals nearby. These immortals were currently sitting cross-legged in the hot spring, seemingly cultivating. They should be some immortals from other sects in Jiang Prefecture. Ever since the sect master of the Luotian sect, Kong Shani, and an elder of the golden immortal level died in the ruins, many sects in Jiang Prefecture had their eyes on the hot spring of the Luotian sect. Now that he saw an outsider in the hot spring, Muron Yu guessed that the recent rumors in Jiang District were true. The last golden immortal of the Luotian sect should have been killed, and the remaining disciples should have been dispersed. What a big hot spring! There's so many people. At this time, Little Purple, who was riding on the back of the big black dog, suddenly said, "Little Z, can you see a lot of people?" Muron Yu turned to look at Little Z and asked in surprise, because with his strength, he could only see a few people. In the immortal world, his divine will could not extend too far. It was severely suppressed. Although it was the second time he had come to this hot spring, he did not know how big it was. Yes, this hot spring is so big. It's much bigger than Blue Mountain City, and there are so many people here. Little Z really wants to take a bath here, but those people are too dirty. Little Z doesn't like it. Little Z said with a frown. Hearing Little Z's words, Muron Yu and the big black dog were shocked. Little Z could actually see how big the hot spring was and how many people were in the hot spring. How'd she do it? Little Z, how can you see how big the hot spring is? Muron Yu could not help but ask. He was really surprised. I don't know. After I came here, I naturally saw this hot spring. It seems that Little Z has always been like this. I don't know what's going on. Little Z looked at Muron Yu and smiled sweetly. Muron Yu was speechless. Was this Little Z's innate ability? Little Z did not have any strength now, but she could see a range several times bigger than Blue Mountain City, or even bigger. Innate ability. These four words instantly appeared in Muron Yu's mind. The so-called innate divine ability was a kind of divine ability that one was born with. This kind of ability did not need to be cultivated. It was naturally possessed. For example, Little Z's ability to see a long distance without strength. Little Z's innate ability was actually similar to the clairvoyance in the secular world. Another example was some people's clairvoyance. Like Little Z, people with clairvoyance could hear all the sounds from a long distance away. Of course, in addition to these innate abilities, there were many other kinds of innate abilities. Some could increase attack power, some could high breath, and so on. Of course, these innate abilities were very rare, 1 in 100 million. Little Z, do you like this hot spring? Then Big Brother will drive these people away, and then take the hot spring for himself. What do you think? Okay, Big Brother, then hurry up and drive away those bad people who have taken over Little Z's hot spring. Little Z said excitedly, clapping her hands. Muron Yu blushed with sweat. It seemed that Little Z already regarded this hot spring as hers. The other people in the hot spring were all bad people. This little girl was even more domineering than him. Muron Yu blushed with shame. The big black dog, who was being ridden like a mount, rolled its big eyes and looked at Muron Yu with resentment. Everyone who follows you is like you. A mere high immortal, such big words. At this time, a disdainful voice sounded in Murong Yu and the others' ears. It turned out that the conversation between Murong Yu and the others had been heard by the nearby immortals. Hearing Murong use big words, those immortals were of course unhappy. "Big brother, let's just beat these bad people to death." Before Murong Yu could speak, little Z said loudly, "This little girl was really too fierce." Murong Yu even suspected that if she had the strength, she would have already rushed out to fight, right? Even if they are mere high immortals, it would be easy for them to kill you. Murong Yu looked at the immortals who were coming over on the waves and sneered. These three immortals were not weak. Two were in the late high immortal stage, and one was in the early golden immortal stage. They were very powerful. However, at this time, the three immortals were fuming with anger because of little Z's words. "Shameless boasting. Let me teach you a lesson." One of the late high immortals sneered, took a few steps forward, and punched at Murong Yu. "Lil Z, cover your eyes and turn your head," Murong Yu said in a low voice. Little Z's reaction speed was definitely top-notch. Before Murong Yu could finish his sentence, she had already covered her eyes with her hands and turned her head away. Murong Yu nodded. Then, he threw a punch at the late-stage Ascendant Immortal. However, Murong Yu did not know whether to laugh or cry. When he attacked, little Z, who had turned her head away, turned her head back. Even his fingers, which were covering his eyes tightly, started to crack. This little girl was secretly watching Murong Yu kill the immortals. How dare you be so arrogant when you are only in the early high immortal stage? Now, I will teach you a lesson on behalf of your elders. I will let you know that there is always someone better than you. The late high immortal sneered. "You overestimate yourself." Murong Yu sneered, and at the same time his fist collided with the other party's fist. Boom! Crack! A deafening boom rang out as the late-stage Ascendant Immortal's fist was smashed apart. At the same time, Murong Yu didn't give the immortal a chance to retreat. He took a step forward and unleashed an invincible divine fist, directly striking the immortal's body. Bang! After an explosion, the immortal didn't even have time to react before he was killed by Murong Yu. "Good job, big brother. Kill the other two bad guys, too." At this moment, little Z clapped her hands and cheered loudly. Her reaction was much faster than the other two immortals. "Kill him." It was not until this moment that the other two immortals came to their senses. They were simply too shocked. Murong Yu, an early-stage Ascendant Immortal, had actually killed a late-stage Ascendant Immortal with just 2 punches? Such a shocking scene caused them to be unable to react for a moment. "Big Black Dog, look after little Z. I will deal with the other two." Murong Yu sneered, and then he rushed toward the two immortals. As for the other character of the 9 syllables, the battle character, Murong Yu was constantly using and circulating it. Therefore, he was now using strength that surpassed his peak. "Kill!" Murong Yu roared and rushed to the front of the High Immortal, and then punched him. The High Immortal's eyes flashed fiercely, and he laughed hideously. A saber appeared in his hand out of thin air. Then, he held the saber with both hands and slashed it down, trying to split Murong Yu in half. Murong Yu coldly snorted. His invincible divine fist fiercely smashed against the warblade. Bang! At the moment of collision, the saber in the High Immortal's hand was directly shattered. At the same time, Murong Yu was one step faster and punched the High Immortal's head. At this moment, the Golden Immortal's attack finally reached its target. Murong Yu did not dodge. Instead, he punched directly. Boom! After a loud explosion, Murong Yu and the Golden Immortal were both sent flying. However, Murong Yu's body twisted slightly in the void, and he landed steadily on the surface of the water. Meanwhile, the Golden Immortal was directly thrown into the hot spring. The winner was obvious. Die. Murong Yu used the army formula, and his body was as fast as a dart. He rushed up and attacked the Golden Immortal fiercely. Once Murong Yu had the intention to kill, he must kill his enemy. Even if he was not strong enough, Murong Yu would fight with his life. Of course, Murong Yu would not throw his life away. However, It was obvious that although the golden immortal was strong, Murongyu had the strength to kill him. Chapter 402. Elephant Drawing Fist. Dark, godly demon Prajna. Murongyu used the army formula and turned into a stream of light as he charged forward. Along the way, he unleashed a series of terrifying attacks, causing the early-stage golden immortals to fall back. Bang! 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 The early-stage golden immortal's face was filled with shock and anger. Fist after fist flew towards Murongyu in a frenzy. However, he was shocked to find that this exalted immortal, who was a whole realm lower than him, could not fight back at all. Moreover, he was shocked to find that this exalted immortal was getting more and more powerful, and his lethality was getting more and more terrifying. Boom! The two of them clashed again. The golden immortal felt something sweet in his throat. Then he spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. F***CK, what kind of monster is this? How can he be so powerful? The golden immortal was now wondering if Murongyu was pretending to be weak. This guy's strength was really too strong. If they continued fighting like this, he would definitely die. Let's go. The golden immortal woke up in an instant. He immediately flew into the distance. He would be an idiot if he did not leave when he knew that he was going to die. Big brother, come on, kill this bad guy. In the distance, Little Purple, who was riding on the big black dog, kept clapping her little hands to cheer Murongyu on. Hearing Little Purple's words, Murongyu was speechless. However, the golden immortal was gnashing his teeth. Die. The golden immortal was already very angry when he was suppressed by Murongyu, who was a whole realm lower than him. At this moment, after hearing Little Purple's words, he was even angrier. He shouted and then slapped out at Little Purple, who was on the big black dog's back. He wanted to kill Little Purple. Woof! Seeing that the golden immortal was attacking them, the big black dog immediately reacted and barked. All the black fur on his body stood up, looking very terrifying. At the same time, the big black dog, who knew that he was no match for the golden immortal, took Little Purple and ran away. You're courting death. Seeing how shameless this golden immortal was, Murongyu was immediately enraged. With a loud shout, the yin-yang cauldron of heaven and earth burst out and instantly expanded to the size of a divine mountain. It crushed the sky and smashed down on the golden immortal. At the same time, yin-yang fire sprayed out from the yin-yang cauldron, burning the world, while the big black dog was busy running away, and Murongyu was busy killing gold immortals. The two of them did not notice the strange behavior of Little Purple, who was on the big black dog's back. When the golden immortal attacked Little Purple lowered her head slightly. The moment she lowered her head, an inexplicable light shot out from her eyes. It seemed to be a vicious aura, a cold light, and an incomparably sharp killing intent. Chi-Chi, wherever the yin-yang fire passed, the power of the golden immortal was directly shattered. At the same time, the yin-yang cauldron, under the control of Murongyu, directly shattered the void and bombarded the golden immortal. At the same time, Murongyu grabbed the air with both hands. In the next moment, the golden yin-yang bow and the heaven-shaking arrow appeared in his hands. He pulled the bow to the fullest chi. An incomparably sharp sound echoed in the surroundings. The heaven-shaking arrow instantly turned into a wisp of golden light and tore through the void, strangling the golden immortal. Seeing that the yin-yang fire had directly burned his power, the golden immortal was obviously shocked. At the same time, when he saw the yin-yang cauldron violently crashing towards him, the golden immortal was even more shocked and directly retreated. However, the yin-yang cauldron was like a shadow. It chased closely after. At this moment, the heaven-shaking arrow let out a shocking sound, piercing through the void and directly appearing in front of the golden immortal. The golden immortal was instantly terrified. He instantly increased his strength to the limit and fiercely attacked the heaven-shaking arrow. Bang! After a loud bang, the heaven-shaking arrow directly shattered the power of the golden immortal. Then, Before the Golden Immortal could retreat, he ruthlessly bombarded the Golden Immortal's body. Boom! The Golden Immortal let out a blood-curdling scream as half of his body was instantly blown apart. At the same time, the Yin-Yang Cauldron carried a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth and violently collided with his body. It directly smashed his body into pieces. Whoosh! The Yin-Yang fire burned past, and instantly, the Golden Immortal was slightly reduced to powder, not even leaving a trace. You're courting death. Murong snorted coldly and reached out to recall the heaven-shaking arrow and the Yin-Yang Cauldron. Originally, when he saw the Golden Immortal escape, Murong did not intend to chase after him. After all, he was not here to kill. However, this Golden Immortal should not have attacked Little Z. When he attacked Little Z, he was already destined to die. Originally, Murong strength had already broken through to the early stage of the exalted immortal realm, and he already had the strength to fight against the Golden Immortal. Moreover, as the battle formula became more and more powerful, it also increased his strength more and more. If he had the Yin-Yang Cauldron and the Yin-Yang Bow, killing a Golden Immortal would be a piece of cake. When he was at the early stage of the exalted immortal realm, Murong's lifespan had already reached 100 million years. His physical body had also reached the peak of a 4th-grade immortal artifact. Under the accelerated flow of time, he cultivated for another few hundred years. After a few hundred years, although he had not broken through the chaotic celestial body record, his realm had already reached the exalted immortal realm. The early stage of the exalted immortal realm, 500 million years of lifespan. A 5th-grade immortal artifact body. His strength was close to that of a Golden Immortal, and he could fight against a Golden Immortal. It could be said that it was very terrifying. These changes were all within Murong's expectations, but what he did not expect was the Tree of Life. When he was at the early stage of the exalted immortal realm, the Tree of Life was 100 miles tall. When he was at the exalted immortal realm, the life force had skyrocketed to 1,000 miles tall. Among them, the 9 baby-like ginseng fruits hanging on the Tree of Life, which looked exactly like Murong, were much more crystal clear and emitted waves of fragrance, which was extremely tempting. Murong looked at these 9 ginseng fruits more than once and was puzzled. Even the experienced and knowledgeable Hichu had never seen such a phenomenon. After all, even at the beginning of the world, the Tree of Life had never blossomed, let alone bore fruit. The most strange thing was that these ginseng fruits were the 9 black lotuses in Murong's body. When they cultivated normally, after entering the silent spirit stage, their lotuses would disappear after forming a heart and merge with their physical body again. But Murong's had become the fruit of the Tree of Life. It was really strange. Little Purple, are you okay? Murong walked over and asked with concern. Woof! Lord Tengu was scared to death. That bastard is really shameless. The large black dog still had lingering fear in his heart. But Little Purple still had a sweet smile on her face. With Big Brother here, Little Purple will be fine. I believe in Big Brother. Hearing Little Purple's words, Murong blushed with shame in his heart. If his strength hadn't skyrocketed, just now, he probably wouldn't have been able to protect Little Purple and the large black dog. Even if his strength was a little weaker, there would still be a tragedy today. Different from Murong, the large black dog grinned and looked at Murong with disdain. He thought in his heart, if it's really like what Little Purple said, then I believe in Murong's words. The large black dog would have already died who knows how many times. It's good that you're okay, but it's too dangerous here. You better go back to Hichu Luo Shu. Murong waved his hand, and without waiting for Little Purple's protest, he directly took them into the Hichu Luo Shu world. Chapter 403. Hearing Little Z's words, Murong was sweating in his heart. If his strength had not skyrocketed, he would not have been able to protect Little Z and the big black dog just now. Even if he had been a little weaker, he would have suffered a tragedy today. Unlike Murong, The big black dog grinned and looked at Muronyu with disdain. He thought, if what little Z said was true, and I believe Muronyu, he would have died many times already. It's good that you're fine, but it's too dangerous here. You better go back to Hichu Luoshu. Muronyu waved his hand and took them into the Hichu Luoshu world without waiting for little Z's protest. The one who attacked just now was only a golden immortal. What if it was a mystic immortal? Muronyu did not even have time to react. Moreover, even a mystic sect was eyeing this place covetously. Mystic immortals were definitely not the only powerful ones here. There should be Zenith Heaven immortals too. Even Zenith Heaven golden immortals were not few. With Murongyu's current strength, he was no match for those experts at all. Moreover, he was going to take the hot spring under their noses. This was going against all of them. Muronyu frowned slightly. There were too many people in the hot spring, and there was no lack of powerful experts among them. What should he do to uproot the hot spring under everyone's noses and take it away? In the Hichu Luoshu world, little Z's small face tensed up, and there was an unhappy look in her eyes. Big Brother Batty actually sent me here. I could have helped him. Little Purple was talking to herself. She seemed very unhappy. As for the big black dog, he was still being used as a mount at this time. He was lying on the ground with a sad face, looking listless. The longer we delay, the more experts will come here. To take the hot spring, of course, the sooner the better. But what about the people in the hot springs? Muronyu frowned as he pondered. The more time passed, the more difficult it would be for Muronyu to collect the hot spring. Since that's the case, we can only do this. Directly take them into the Hichu Luoshu world. As long as they enter the Hichu Luoshu world, in my world, they won't have the ability to resist. Muronyu thought for a long time, and finally made up his mind and brought out the Hichu Luoshu. Hichu Luoshu was a huge picture scroll, just like the painting of mountains and rivers. Under Murongyu's control, the Hichu Luoshu began to expand with the wind and began to expand rapidly. At the same time, it slowly rose into the air. Big, big, big. The Hichu Luoshu grew bigger and bigger. In an instant, it enveloped the entire area. What's going on? How is he a pervert? In the hot spring, mist filled the air, and vision was severely limited. However, when the Hichu Luoshu gradually covered the entire area, many immortals in the hot spring still sensed it. However, at this time, the Hichu Luoshu had already been hidden in the void by Muronyu. Although these immortals felt that they seemed to be enveloped by a layer of something, they didn't notice it. After all, only golden immortals could fly. Even if they noticed that the sky was different from usual, they didn't have the ability to fly in the sky to check. 10,000 li, 20,000 li, 50,000 li, 100,000 li. When the Hichu Luoshu grew to 100,000 li, Muronyu finally saw the Hichu Luoshu enveloping the entire hot spring. Then, after the Hichu Luoshu continued to grow a lot, Muronyu controlled the Hichu Luoshu to directly cover the entire hot spring. Just like when he robbed the shops of the top 10 sects in the cultivation world, he wanted to directly take the hot spring into the Hichu Luoshu world like those shops. However, it was obvious that the hot spring was very different from those buildings. Muronyu wanted to take the entire hot spring into the Hichu Luoshu, not the hot spring water into the Hichu Luoshu. Therefore, he had to uproot the hot spring and take it away together. Only then could the hot spring be considered as being taken away. The moment the He-Tu and the Luo inscription covered it, it opened abruptly. At this moment, all the immortals in the hot spring suddenly felt an incomparably terrifying force acting on them. Then, before they could react, they saw the scenery in front of them change. By the time they reacted, they discovered that they had already left the hot spring and appeared in an incomparably vast and unfamiliar space. Everyone was shocked. Because they didn't know what was going on, they were very panicked. After sizing up the surrounding environment, they all burst out and shot in all directions. Among them, there were even a few golden immortals. At this moment, they all soared into the sky and began to explore this world in the void. However, this world was simply too big. It was endless, and there was no end to it at all. Other than those who were suddenly teleported here, they didn't meet anyone else. Therefore, they didn't know whether they were still in the immortal world or in another space, or even another immortal world. Boom! Not long after these people left, a huge black shadow suddenly fell from the sky at the place where they originally appeared, and then fell fiercely on the ground. After the earth-shattering sound, the original ground of this space had disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a huge lake shrouded in mist. Hot spring. This is the hot spring lake of the Luotian sect. The immortals who were attracted by the earth-shattering sound exclaimed when they saw the huge hot spring. It's indeed the hot spring of the Luotian sect. But how'd the hot spring get here? Could it be that it was moved here by someone? An immortal exclaimed in shock after checking the hot spring. A lake that's 100,000 miles in size. At least the Xin sect, the overlord of the Jiang prefecture, doesn't have the ability to move it out of thin air. Could be a big force outside the Jiang prefecture, or an expert above the nine heavens Xian immortal realm. For the experts of the immortal world, it wasn't difficult to destroy this hot spring. However, if they wanted to take it away, they would need to be extremely strong. At least, the nine heavens Xian immortals didn't have the ability to do so. Who on earth did such a big thing? They directly moved the entire hot spring away. An immortal's face was full of shock. At this point, they finally knew why they appeared in this unfamiliar space. That mysterious expert had even moved the entire hot spring into thin air. It was a piece of cake for him to move them into this space. Just as Murong Yu used the Hichu Luo Shu to take away the entire hot spring, the sudden disappearance of the hot spring had already been discovered by the cultivators who were originally near the Luotian sect. They were all immortals, powerful and knowledgeable. Of course, they didn't think that the hot spring suddenly disappeared into thin air. Immediately, they knew that an almighty had taken it away. Immediately, many cultivators began to suspect that the overlord of the Jiang prefecture, the Xian sect, had come. In the Jiang prefecture, if there was anyone who could take away this hot spring, then it would be the overlord of the Jiang prefecture, the Xian sect. Apart from them, no one else had this ability. Chapter 404. Just as Murong Yu used the Hichu Luo Shu to take away the hot spring, the sudden disappearance of the hot spring was discovered by the cultivators near the Luotian gate. They were all immortals, powerful and knowledgeable. Of course, they did not think that the hot spring had disappeared into thin air. Immediately, they knew that an almighty had taken it away. Immediately, many cultivators began to suspect that the overlord of Jiangzhou, the mysterious sect, had come. In Jiangzhou, if there was anyone who could take away the hot spring, it would be the overlord of Jiangzhou, the mysterious sect. Apart from them, no one else had the ability to do so. Bastard! Who did this? In the main hall of the Luotian gate, the mysterious lady was furious. After knowing that the hot spring had been taken away, the mysterious sect immediately received the news. The mysterious lady also rushed to the Luotian gate at once. As for the discussions around her, she knew that they suspected that it was the mysterious sect's doing. However, she did not know if the mysterious sect had the ability to do so. No, although the mysterious sect was the overlord of Jiangzhou, it was at most a third-rate force in the immortal world. As long as a sect had a nine heavens Xian immortal, it had the qualifications to become a third-rate sect. A nine heavens Xian immortal was considered an expert in the immortal world. If he stretched out his hand, he could even crush the entire cultivation world below into powder. Even in the immortal world where space was very firm, a nine heavens Xian immortal could destroy everything within 100,000 miles with a slap. It was the size of the hot spring in the Luotian gate. However, it was easy for them to destroy the hot spring, but it was impossible for them to take it away. Then, Only an expert among the 9 heavens, Xian immortals, had the ability to do so. However, in a small place like Jiangzhou, was there really such a powerful existence? The mysterious lady was furious, but at the same time, she fell into deep thought. If it was really an expert of that level, she and the mysterious sect could not interfere in this matter. In other words, they did not dare to interfere in this matter. Otherwise, if they angered an expert of that level, he only needed to slap the mysterious sect a few times from afar, and the overlord of Jiangzhou would be wiped out. Leave Luotian Gate immediately. Don't investigate anything related to the hot spring. When the mysterious lady reported this matter to the mysterious sect immediately responded. The mysterious lady was also straightforward. She brought her people and left the mysterious sect. And the departure of the mysterious madam confirmed everyone's guess. They all believed that the mysterious sect had already taken away the hot spring. Even the many immortals who had been cultivating in the hot spring were shocked. However, they did not dare to speak out against the overlord of Jiangzhou. However, Xianzong would not be the scapegoat for someone. After the mysterious lady left the Luotian Gate, Xianzong came forward to clarify the fact that they did not collect the hot spring. Regardless of whether they believed it or not, the profound sect had only said one sentence. Hichu Luoshu world. The immortals who had been taken into the Hichu Luoshu by Murong Yu had all gathered around the hot spring, as if they were waiting for something. No one ran away, not because they didn't want to, but because they knew they couldn't escape. Whoosh! Sure enough, it didn't take long for their target to appear. A black-clothed youth suddenly appeared above their heads out of thin air. He floated in the air and looked down at them. This is that expert. The moment Murong Yu appeared, this thought appeared in everyone's minds. This was because none of them were able to fly in this place. Even those golden immortals couldn't. Looking at the densely packed group of people and immortals below, Murong Yu could not help but feel happy. These people might not be strong, but they were definitely not weak. The weakest among them was at the immortal realm. There were even a few perfected golden immortals among them. Golden immortals were experts even in the immortal world. They were experts who founded their own sections. At this moment, these golden immortals felt very aggrieved. They were experts of Jiangzhou. After knowing that all the experts of the Luotian Gate had been killed, they immediately rushed to the Luotian Gate and began to cultivate in the hot spring. They knew that with their strength, of course, it was impossible for them to seize the hot spring. They did not have the ability nor the qualifications. However, they held the idea that before the hot spring was taken away by others, they would seize the time to cultivate in the hot spring for a period of time. So they began to cultivate there. However, they didn't expect that before they could cultivate anything, they would be inexplicably captured and brought here. They could not even resist. Golden immortals, Xian immortals. There were at least thousands of immortals in total. If thousands of immortals above the immortal realm all submitted to Murong Yu, then these people would be Murong Yu's first forces in the immortal world. Perhaps their strength was not high enough. But don't forget, Murong Yu still had the immortal expansion pill. As long as he was willing, he could raise the strength of these people all the way to the 9 heavens Xian immortal realm. A sect with a 9 heavens Xian immortal realm expert was already a third-rate sect in the immortal world. Moreover, in the immortal world, how many immortals were stuck in the golden immortal realm and could not break through to the 9 heavens Xian immortal realm? And how many immortals were stuck in the lower realms and could only look up to the higher realms for the rest of their lives? Looking at these people, Murong Yu was filled with confidence. He believed that these people could submit to him. I'm sure everyone already knows who I am. Now I'll give you 2 choices, submit or die. Murong Yu looked down at the thousands of immortals, many of whom were stronger than him, and said in a flat voice, "Bullshit, you're just a mere exalted immortal. I can crush you with a finger." Before Murong Yu could finish speaking, one of them jumped up and pointed at Murong Yu, cursing loudly. At this moment, they finally realized that Murong Yu was only an exalted immortal. He could fly at the exalted immortal realm. They did not doubt it, because it could be in one of his spatial treasures. A cold light flashed between Murongyu's brows, but he sneered inwardly. This idiot, I was just worrying about who to use to establish my authority, and you jumped out. Aren't you courting death? However, Morongyu didn't seem to have done anything. Instead, he bent his right index finger slightly and flicked it gently. A miniature bolt of black lightning shot out from Murongyu's fingertip, instantly piercing through the void. Then, before the exalted immortal could react, it sank into his head. Child's play. You don't have the ability to kill. After seeing the black lightning enter his body, the exalted immortal was shocked and panic filled his face. But soon, he realized that he was completely fine. Thus, he sneered, mocking Morongyu for not being able to kill him. However, before he could say the word "I," his entire body was reduced to a fine powder. A gentle breeze blew past, and the exalted immortal was dead. Black lightning, the mysterious lightning that had almost killed Morongyu back then. Morongyu rarely used it, but its power was extremely terrifying. Although it was not as powerful as the yin-yang flame, it was not far off. Submit or die. After killing an exalted immortal with a wave of his hand, Morongyu glanced at everyone without changing his expression and said indifferently, "You're just relying on this spatial treasure. With your strength, you don't have the right to make us submit. I won't submit." After Morongyu killed the exalted immortal, everyone fell silent. Even the golden immortals were silent. They all knew that in this spatial treasure, Morongyu was the ruler. They could not resist. However, at this moment, a Xian immortal stepped out and looked at Morongyu coldly. Isn't this guy courting death? Everyone looked at this Xian immortal with pity. They were all worried that Morongyu would kill this immortal again. However, Morongyu's next action made their jaws drop. "What's your name?" Morongyu did not kill this Xian immortal. Instead, he asked, "Qin Peng." Qin Peng looked coldly at Morongyu and said. Morongyu nodded and smiled. He asked, "Qin Peng, how can I make you submit?" "If you're stronger than me, I'll naturally submit. But you can't." Morongyu was not angry. Instead, he asked a related question. How long did it take you to cultivate from the sky immortal realm to the exalted immortal realm? About 300,000 years. Sky immortals usually have a lifespan of 1,000,000 years. You used about 1/3 of that time to break through to the exalted immortal realm. Your aptitude is barely passable. However, do you know how long it took me to cultivate from the exalted immortal realm? Morongyu suddenly sneered. "I'm afraid your aptitude is not that good." Qin Peng continued to sneer. "My aptitude is indeed not that good. It took me less than 3 years to reach the exalted immortal realm from the sky immortal realm." 3 years? 3 years? How is that possible? That's simply impossible. When they heard Morongyu's words, the immortals below sneered. "About 2 years ago, I ascended from the cultivation world. It's been less than 3 years since I set foot in the immortal realm. There's no need for me to lie to you about this." Morongyu sneered. "Are you serious?" Qin Peng asked in disbelief. "Yes. If you're serious, then I, Qin Peng, will be the first to submit. However, this is only your side of the story. I didn't think you'd believe me, but it's the truth. You'll see it with your own eyes. At the same time, I'll tell you that as long as you submit to me, I'll help you break through. I don't dare say too much, but breaking through to the 9 heavens Xian immortal realm is a piece of cake for me, because I have the immortal expansion pill." Chapter 405. Immortal Expansion Pill. 9 Heavens, Xian Immortal. Hiss! The instant Morongyu's words left his mouth, the crowd was filled with gasps of shock, doubt, and disbelief. That's the Immortal Expansion Pill. Just as everyone was feeling bewildered, a perfected golden immortal looked at Morongyu in the sky and let out a sharp shriek. What immortal expansion pill? The few golden immortals around him frowned slightly. That's the immortal expansion pill in his hand, The golden immortal who had screamed earlier said again. Really? Definitely. I had the honor of seeing it before. The perfected golden immortal stared blankly at the round, pigeon egg-sized pill in Murong Yu's hand. It was emitting an alluring fragrance, and he was on the verge of drooling. It's just an immortal expansion pill. It's useless, Qin Peng, the Xian immortal, said coldly. This guy had repeatedly contradicted Murong Yu. The people around him were worried about him. Would he be killed by Murong Yu? Therefore, unknowingly, there was no second person near Qin Peng. They all stayed away from him. They were afraid that it would only affect the city. Seeing this, Qin Peng only sneered in his heart. He did not say anything. A immortal expansion pill is indeed useless. However, I have a large number of immortal expansion pills. I can even raise all of you to the 9 heavens Xian immortal realm. Murong Yu was not angry. He only looked at Qin Peng and said, "Of course, I won't give you my immortal expansion pills for free. My immortal expansion pills are only for those who submit to me, are loyal to me, and will not betray me. I'll give you some time to think about whether to submit to me or not. If you submit to me, I'll let you reach a realm that you've never reached before. You can't even imagine it now. As for how to decide, you can slowly think about it." Before he could finish his words, Murong Yu's figure flashed and disappeared. At the same time, a huge hand reached down from the sky and grabbed the entire hot spring. Then, it disappeared into thin air. It turned out that Murong Yu had moved the hot spring somewhere else. The several thousand immortals of different cultivation levels did not leave. Instead, they either sat cross-legged on the ground or stood where they were deep in thought. To them, breaking through each major realm was extremely difficult. They might not even be able to take that step in their entire lives. On the other hand, Murong Yu had a large amount of immortal expansion pills. However, if he wanted to obtain Murong Yu's immortal expansion pill, he would have to choose to submit to Murong Yu. If they submitted to Murong Yu, they would have a chance to break through to the 9 heavens Xian immortal realm, which was an even higher realm. A higher realm meant a longer lifespan and stronger strength. It also meant that they had a greater chance of breaking through to the next realm. However, after submitting to Murong Yu would become the ruler, and they would become his subjects. They would lose their freedom, and even their own fates would be out of their control. Should he hand his fate over to Murong Yu and obtain a breakthrough? Or should he allow himself to slowly cultivate and break through? In reality, if he did not submit, he would die. What they needed to consider now was whether to submit or die. On the other side of the Hichu Luoshu world, Murong Yu had already suppressed the hot spring on a piece of land. At this moment, he and Hichu were standing outside the hot spring. They were looking at the hot spring, which was surrounded by white mist. Meanwhile, the large black dog and little purple had already rushed into the hot spring. "Hichu, even you can't tell what's going on with this hot spring?" Murong Yu asked with a frown as he looked at Hichu. Hichu shook his head. "I can't see anything strange about it at all. However, the legend about the hot spring should be true." "That's strange. There's nothing special about the entire hot spring. Even the bottom of the hot spring doesn't seem strange." Murong Yu was puzzled. After moving the entire hot spring into the Hichu Luoshu world, he and Hichu had thoroughly inspected the entire hot spring. However, they did not discover anything. In that case, there were only 2 possibilities. The first was that there was really nothing strange about this hot spring. It was the same as other hot springs. There was nothing special about it. However, which one of them had the ability to consolidate one's cultivation, improve one's aptitude, improve one's cultivation speed, and prevent one's cultivation from going berserk? The second was that there was something different about this hot spring. However, with their strength, they were still unable to discover it. There were only these 2 explanations. In that case, let's not think about it for now. Hichu, do you have a way to directly control people? Murong Yu turned to look at Hichu and asked. This time, he had directly taken so many immortals into the Hichu Luoshu world. Murong Yu did not want to let any of them go. This was a huge fortune. It was even more valuable than the disciples of many sects in the immortal world. Moreover, there were a few golden immortals among these immortals. As long as he subdued them, Murong Yu's power in the immortal world would have taken shape. Moreover, once these golden immortals broke through to become Xian immortals of the Nine Heavens, Murong Yu would have the ability to challenge the overlord of Jiang's state, Xianzong. As long as he gained a firm foothold in the immortal world, he would be able to bring the immortals of Shenzhen from the cultivation world up. At that time, he would be able to develop his own power in the immortal world. However, these immortals were different from the cultivators he had subdued in the cultivation world. Murong Yu's strength could suppress those cultivators, but his current strength could not suppress these immortals. Therefore, he had to have a way to control them. Otherwise, he did not want anything to happen that he did not want to see. It's very simple. Just extract a trace of their souls and let you control it, Hichu said indifferently. There's such a cultivation method? Murong Yu frowned slightly. He knew that souls were invisible and intangible. How could he extract them? If there isn't, then how can your soul summoning banner attack souls? Hichu asked. Murong Yu was overjoyed. Then hurry up. In a Hichu, Luoshu world, even if they're golden immortals, they're still under my control. Moreover, I believe that by this time, they have already thought about it, right? Murong Yu smiled faintly. Then he and Hichu soared into the sky and quickly appeared in front of those immortals. Just as Murong Yu had expected, the moment Murong Yu arrived, he didn't even have to ask any questions before those people expressed their allegiance. No one had any objections. In fact, they did not dare to. However, Murong Yu and Hichu sneered in their hearts. The reason why these thousands of immortals expressed their allegiance was because they had no choice. There are not many who truly submitted. Of course, whether they truly submitted or not, Murong Yu did not have anything to worry about. As long as he controlled their souls, they would have no choice but to be loyal. You have all submitted. However, I do not believe it. Therefore, I still have to do something. Murong Yu glanced at everyone indifferently. Then, he ignored everyone's expressions and turned to Hichu beside him. Let's begin. Hichu nodded. He took a few steps forward and stretched out his hand. Suddenly, an almost invisible force shot out from his palm and wrapped around everyone. Everyone's expressions changed again. Just as they were about to react, Murong Yu's indifferent voice sounded in their ears again. Hichu wants to extract a trace of your souls. I suggest that you do not move. Otherwise, if his hand trembles and he extracts even a little bit of your soul will become incomplete. You should know very well what the consequences will be. Everyone's expressions kept changing, but in the end, they did not overreact. Just as Murong Yu said, if Hichu's hand trembled, they might die because of it. Moreover, it was not just them, but all of them. This was because Hichu was attacking all of them at the same time. I hope this ordinary-looking young man is an expert. Otherwise, we will be in trouble. The immortals looked at Hichu nervously and thought to themselves. After Hichu's power enveloped everyone, it directly entered their soul space. Ding! Everyone felt as if they had been bitten by a mosquito. They also felt as if something was missing from their soul, but it also felt as if something was missing. All right. Right at this moment, he too shouted in a low voice and withdrew his hand. This is a trace of their soul. Keep it well. If anyone betrays you, you only need to crush this trace of their soul. Then their entire soul will shatter and they will die immediately. Hichu's voice was not loud. It was as if he was speaking only to Murong Yu. However, it rang in all the immortals' ears. This was clearly telling the immortals that their lives were in Murong Yu's hands. As long as Murong Yu willed it, they would die. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts, but there was nothing they could do. Things had already turned out this way. What else could they do? They could only accept this fact. As for the immortal expansion pills, I have an endless supply of them. However, I can't give them to you for now. Now, I will give you time to recover your strength to its peak. After half a month, I will start to break through your realms. Everyone was helpless, but they could only accept it. Immortal meridians are still not enough. After leaving the immortals, Murong Yu could not help but sigh. Although he had obtained a few immortal meridians and refined many immortal expansion pills, who knew how many immortal expansion pills were needed to break through each realm? Even when breaking through, a large amount of spiritual energy was needed. With Hichu Luoshu's current spiritual energy, it was simply not enough for a large number of immortals to break through at the same time. I'm a miserable person. For the sake of immortal meridians, I have to work hard every day. Murongyu rolled his eyes and could not help but glare at Hichu. This guy had said that Zhao Yun had left behind some treasures. However, until now, Murongyu had not seen a single strand of hair. He had to fight for everything on his own. Chapter 406. Immortal Meridians, Elixirs, Dharma Treasures, Divine Weapons, and so on. Murongyu needed almost everything. However, at present, what he needed most was an Immortal Meridian. Having an Immortal Meridian was equivalent to having everything. An Immortal Meridian could be used to refine elixirs, and some extremely rare elixirs could be used to exchange for various immortal weapons. However, although the immortal world was vast, where could there be an Immortal Meridian? Murongyu believed that the few golden immortals he had subdued definitely did not have an Immortal Meridian. In fact, Murongyu even suspected that they had seen an Immortal Meridian before. As for whether immortals of other levels had an Immortal Meridian, that was even more impossible. If thousands of immortals break through at the same time, they will need an extremely large amount of immortal spirit energy. However, how can there be so much immortal spirit energy in the Hichu Luoshu? Murongyu frowned slightly. The reason why he did not immediately raise the realm and strength of those immortals was because he had considered this problem. After Murongyu ascended to the immortal world, the heaven and earth essence energy in the Hichu Luoshu had gradually changed into immortal spirit energy. Murongyu had felt that this was very strange at first, but Hichu's words later cleared his doubts. Hichu Luoshu has always been like this. If you ascend to the immortal world, the heaven and earth essence energy in the Hichu Luoshu will no longer be immortal spirit energy. As for why, as the weapon spirit of the Hichu Luoshu, Hichu did not know either. After all, the current Hichu Luoshu had a weapon spirit. Even the weapon spirit did not completely understand the Hichu Luoshu. Without enough immortal spirit energy, even if you take the immortal expansion pill, it will be a waste. You won't be able to break through at all, Hichu said. Do you know where the immortal spirit energy in the Jiang Prefecture is the densest? Murongyu found Qin Peng and the few golden immortals and asked with a frown. The place with the densest immortal spirit qi in Jiang Prefecture is undoubtedly the Profound Sect. However, that place isn't a place that ordinary people can enter, much less cultivate there. When Murongyu asked that question, Qin Peng and the others had a vague idea of what Murongyu meant. Nothing else. Murongyu frowned. I don't know a place. The immortal spiritual energy there is dozens of times denser than the mysterious sect. Even if a few thousand of US break through at the same time, it would not be a problem. However, Qin Peng frowned slightly and suddenly spoke with some hesitation. You mean Jiangchuan? At this moment, a golden immortal frowned and asked Qin Peng. Qin Peng nodded. Jiangchuan could be said to be the place with the densest immortal spirit qi in Jiangzhou. However, it was also the most dangerous place in Jiang District. We call it the Forbidden Land of Death in Jiangzhou. Anyone who accidentally enters Jiangchuan will die 100 times over. That is the true Forbidden Land of Death. Seeing Murongyu's puzzled expression, another golden immortal quickly explained. Their lives were now in Murongyu's hands. They had no choice but to be absolutely loyal to Murongyu. Moreover, if Murongyu really went there, once he died, they would be buried with him. The immortal spiritual energy there is very dense. Murongyu automatically skipped the words Forbidden Land of Death. He was only interested in the immortal spiritual energy now. The immortal spiritual energy is definitely the densest place in Jiang District, but it is also the most dangerous place in Jiang District. The few of them all looked at Murong Yu and said seriously. They only hoped that Murong Yu would not go to Jiangchuan. Otherwise, they would die without a burial place. This was because they had never heard of anyone who entered Jiangchuan being able to come out. All right, let's go to Jiangchuan. Murong Yu's eyes flashed. With a wave of his hand, Qin Peng and the others were teleported away, while he returned to the other side of Hichu Luoshu. Big brother, this time you must take me out, or I will ignore you. After knowing that Murong Yu was going to leave again, Little Purple raised her small mouth and threatened Murong Yu. Don't worry, this time I'll take you all with me. Murong Yu looked at Little Purple and smiled dotingly. Woof! At this time, the big black dog, who had been ignored for a long time, finally couldn't help but bark. This unlucky guy. Since he became Little Z's mount last time, Little Z fell in love with his back. As long as she saw him, Little Purple would shout for a mount. Of course, the big black dog was unwilling. After this guy met Little Purple, he turned around and ran. However, what made him want to cry was that he didn't know what was going on. No matter how fast he ran, Little Purple would always catch up with him and only stop when she rode on his back. Was this another one of Little Purple's innate magical powers? When Murong Yu heard it for the first time, he didn't believe it at all. He thought it was nonsense from the big black dog. However, once he saw the big black dog was really caught by Little Purple, he had to believe that this was another one of Little Purple's innate magical powers. The previous innate divine ability was the heavenly eye. So what was this heavenly eye divine ability? Speed? Phantom. This was another one of her innate magical powers. So far, Little Purple had 2 innate magical powers, Third Eye and Phantom. Of course, this was only discovered by Murong Yu and the others. As for whether Little Purple had other innate magical powers, Murong Yu and the others didn't know. However, Murong Yu vaguely felt that these 2 innate magical powers didn't seem to be all that Little Purple had. At the same time, he was more curious about Little Purple's identity. Innate magical powers were 1 in a billion. At least, when he was wandering in the cultivation world, he had never heard of the existence of innate magical powers. One could imagine how rare innate magical powers were. But Little Purple alone had at least 2 innate magical powers. Was such a girl really just an ordinary person? Absolutely not. However, no matter what, although Murong Yu was curious about Little Purple's identity, he didn't have the intention to harm her. Moreover, the more innate magical powers Little Purple had, the stronger her ability to protect herself. This was exactly what Murong Yu wanted to see. Immediately, Murong Yu left Hichu Luoshu with the big black dog and Little Purple and walked towards Jiangchuan. Along the way, Little Purple was very happy. Murong Yu also seemed to be in a good mood. Only the large black dog, on the other hand, hung his head dejectedly, as if he was about to cry. He was a dignified ancient beast, but now he was treated as a little girl's mount. How could he endure this? How could he find a female dog in the future? However, he was also forced to do this. In terms of speed, he couldn't beat this boy at all, who asked him to have innate magical powers, but he didn't. Jiangchuan's location was not remote, and almost everyone in Jiangzhou knew about it. On the way, Murong Yu only needed to inquire a little and arrived outside Jiangchuan. Jiangchuan was actually an extremely vast river that ran through the entire Jiangzhou. Originally, this river was called Jiangchuan. However, at some point in time, in a place upstream of Jiangchuan, which was the widest place in the entire Jiangchuan, the immortal spiritual energy suddenly became rich. It was dozens of times richer than outside. At first, many people entered this river with a radius of hundreds of millions of miles out of curiosity to find out what was going on. However, they didn't find out the reason, and none of the immortals who entered came out. For a long time, many immortals didn't believe in heresy and entered Jiangchuan to investigate the abnormality inside, but no one came out. Over time, this place became a forbidden land of death in Jiangzhou. Until now, few people had set foot here. Moreover, at some point in time, the word Jiangchuan which originally described the great river that ran through Jiangzhou, had become a description of this forbidden land of death. There must be a demon behind this abnormality. Morongyu stood outside Jiangchuan, looking at Jiangchuan from afar, and said in a deep voice, "The strangeness of Jiangchuan, and why it suddenly became like this, had always been a mystery that no one could solve. What's hidden inside? Monsters? Monsters? Or are some experts cultivating inside? No matter what was inside, it was either an opportunity or danger." As far as Morongyu was concerned, any forbidden zone or land of death was an opportunity. Even Jiangchuan, which was called a land of death, might be an opportunity. Therefore, this time he must go in and find out. "You two go back." Morongyu called the big black dog back and said to him and Little Purple at the same time. Hearing that he called her back again, Little Purple couldn't help but pout, a little unhappy. The big black dog, on the other hand, was so excited that he cracked open his big mouth and laughed. Because as long as they went back to Hichu Luoshu, Little Purple might not want him as a mount. As long as he didn't continue to be a mount, he was happy. "Big brother, I have the phantom. I'm very fast, the bad guys can't catch me." Little Purple looked at Morongyu with pitiful eyes. She didn't want to go back to the empty Hichu Luoshu. "No, we must go back." Morongyu had an unquestionable look, and with a wave of his hand, the two of them were teleported into the Hichu Luoshu world. Although Little Purple's speed was fast, it wasn't very big. Once she met a very powerful person, her phantom would be useless. He took out the Hichu Luoshu and hit on the surface of his body, and his mind was always in contact with the yin-yang cauldron. Morongyu used the battle word art, held the reincarnation spear of 100 birds, and rushed into Jiangchuan at full speed. Whoosh! As soon as he entered Jiangchuan, Morongyu felt a very rich spiritual qi. It was at least 10 times richer than the outside world. And this was only the outermost area of Jiangchuan. Is there something in Jiangchuan that is absorbing and condensing immortal spiritual qi? Morongyu guessed, but his speed was not slow, and he quickly rushed into Jiangchuan. Splash! At this moment, the water in front of Morongyu suddenly exploded, and the waves rushed to the sky. At the same time, an incomparably huge black shadow rushed out from the water, carrying a terrifying power, and fiercely whipped at Morongyu. Morongyu snorted, and with the spear in his right hand, he fiercely increased his strength and directly stabbed with the spear and fiercely collided with the black shadow in the void. Boom! After an earth-shattering sound, under the terrifying shock wave, the water was blasted tens of thousands of miles away, and the waves rushed to the sky. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.